Yes, everyone, you know what time it is. It's your boy Jack here. Hopefully, everybody's doing all right this week. We didn't have any game this past weekend. Of course, Spurs did have that postponed from the Chelsea game, which I actually didn't even bother to watch. I actually went out, enjoyed a bit of the Sunday with the missus, and found out actually from somebody else about the result from it, and it was very relieving, at least for me, very relieving to find out that Pochettino and Chelsea have nothing to play for, have nothing to be happy, have nothing to be excited about for the rest of the season. Was a huge relief for me. As much as I don't really care for the Jurgen Klopp sort of a goodbye parade and that sort of business, I did kind of need them to do a job against the Chelsea, and luckily they did so. And something to be taken from it, by the way, is like a little question that I even actually heard people in the back end just talking about is with kind of the way that Liverpool won by using the youngsters. So that may be something that we'd like to see a bit more of over on this side of things over at Tottenham Hotspur. But hopefully everybody is keeping well. I'm going to be running this fan show solo tonight. Dave, unfortunately, cannot join us. He has an appointment tonight that he can't get out of. But everybody, I hope, like I said, you are keeping well, having a good start to your week here. If you can for me, smash that like button, please. Feel free to come on, have your say. The link is up there for all of you lovely fan show members. But going through kind of the chat here, good to see so many of you lovely members, so many familiar faces in the house here. I'm going to kind of give a quick fire through some of the topics, some of the questions here that normally I'd kind of rattle off between Dave and myself, but might have a bit of a conversation with myself instead here, talking a bit out loud. So the question I just kind of give a bit of a sneak peek to, right? Should Ange be using the kids more like how Klopp did in that final? Let me know. Come on, have your say. Do you feel like Ange hasn't used the kids enough? Because for the most part, they really haven't had really any impact or really many opportunities, you would say, to come in and have an impact this season. Is it more of a next season kind of thing? If we were to finish in Europa League, Europa Conference League type of places where that's when they get their opportunity, or were there chances this season for them to get minutes? Let me know in the chat here, everybody. There was also a lot of anger and frustration after the result on the weekend against Wolves. So plenty of people were starting to come out and question Ange's tactics and felt like maybe he needed to make some adjustments, and maybe he's even getting found out, I think, in certain people's opinions. So kind of the question really is, do you fall in that category, right? Do you fall in that camp? Or is maybe Ange the victim of sort of just changing opinions, changing moods, changing kind of swaying tides of like just how the results go? Because it feels like now Ange is sort of kind of being ridiculed or kind of being criticized for some of the same things that you could say like an Antonio Conte was sort of being criticized for. And so I'm a bit confused as to where we are kind of in our faith, or at least in our confidence in Ange Postecoglou right now. I have plenty of reasons for why I think we have been going through this little bit of this kind of this blip and this bit of inconsistency. But surely I think I will give some of those when people come on and have their say with me. Also, Hugo Lloris, as much as I kind of have avoided Hugo of recent, he came out with some quotes of to kind of talk about, I think mostly kind of the more controversial ones were with his in more reference to when he was with Pochettino. And some of the kind of little tidbits I was able to pull out was that he was talking about progression, with under Pochettino was maybe too fast for the club. I think those were his words, and that they maybe needed 2 to 3 more players in through the door in order to guarantee actually winning something, because he felt like they were on to something. They were, kind of on the road for something special under Pochettino. At least that's what Lloris felt like. And they just needed that extra, bit of business, that extra bit of quality through the window that wasn't brought in because of the stadium. And it was something that he seemed to have. I'm not sure if he shared some strong opinions on it, but he seemed to have at least some hindsight that to offer, or at least just kind of I don't know, revisionist, to sort of what had happened, because he seemed to think that maybe if Spurs didn't end up going through that stadium change during that period, that perhaps they actually could have won something. He felt like moving to Wembley wasn't actually good for the team, because I think they were undefeated, right? The season prior, actually, at the White Hart Lane. So it was kind of some interesting quotes kind of coming out from Hugo Lloris, sort of a bit in the realm of kind of Daniel Levy criticisms, all that sort of thing. So if you want to touch on that, if you want to have your say on that, feel free, come on, have a conversation with me here. Also, Crystal Palace did let go, by the way, of Roy Hodgson, if you didn't know. And Oliver Glasner is off to a winning start in his most recent game against Burnley. Will they continue that, right? New manager bounce, something that we probably don't want to be seeing coming up against Crystal Palace. I think we probably prefer if it were still maybe Roy Hodgson in charge right now, or just because I think manager bounce, especially when it comes to Premier League teams, is a real thing. Even Nuno, right, went through a huge manager bounce by when at least over at Nottingham Forest. Another question of mine is 13 games to go, which is the one in the title here. But what was that loss at the weekend, that we had against Wolves, a massive blow to your top four hopes? Do you think Spurs still stand a chance in this top four contingency? Let me know, everybody. Come on and have your say. And where you at, right? I should probably put this in a different part of the notes here, but where are you at with Ange's tenure, and are you still fully behind him? So do you have any criticisms, any critiques for Ange so far? Do you feel like he is getting found out, or do you still kind of have full confidence in the guy, and you feel like it's just kind of a bit of a blip, part of kind of the project, part of kind of learning about the team and getting to know kind of the Premier League, as well as getting to know plenty of these young players that he has to work with, right? So let me know. Come on, have your say on that one. And do you think Ange might have been working as well on some of the issues that maybe you're have brought up, or maybe I could bring up at some stage over this period? Because we did have a little bit of a break over this weekend. So is that something that you'd like to think that Ange and the team might have been taken advantage of? But let's welcome some people into the building. Let's welcome some people into the house. Like I said, if you are just joining us earlier, Dave unfortunately not able to join us tonight. He has an appointment that he can't get out of, but hopefully you can come on and have your say with me. Plenty of people in the background, so please do come on, everybody. Smash that like button for me, please, if you can. But we have Spurs GC TV. Good to see you in the house, nice and early, nice and first as well, and also appreciate your support as a member. We also have Ellie, the one and only. Good to see you, and just fabulous. I adore his philosophies. Benny Guy, too early to say something next season. More will be revealed. Kind of going to wait and see, I guess, where this guy is. THFC till I die. We'll be speaking to Dermatron nice and early. Big up, guys. Thank God it's Spurs week. And 3 points to the mighty Spurs. Come on, you Harris Army. Come on, you Flat Cap Army. Come on, you Spurs. Georgie Hill says, evening, lads. Hope you're keeping well. Ange has absolutely exceeded expectations. Fighting for top four is incredible, given how much Ange has had to do. Plus, losing Harry Kane as well. We keep going. Come on, you Spurs. Come on, you Harris Army. Come on, you Flat Cap Army. I'm completely with you there on that one, Georgie. I feel like with everything that could have gone wrong this season under Ange Postecoglou, especially with the injuries, Harry Kane, plenty of other drama as well, even kind of the mid-season tournaments of AFCON, as well as the Asian Cup. I think he's done a fine job, with everything, considering that, could have really made him slip. Also, his first experience, right, in the Premier League. And I think at least the way he went about it, he hit the ground really running, at least, and gave the Premier League a shake. So let's hope that he can find his way again, and the Spurs team can find his way again, because I don't think it all rests on Ange. I think a lot of players certainly went missing over some periods. So big up to you, Georgie Hill. We have Mark Cook as well in the house. Good to see you, sir. Alpesh Patel, really good to see you. Evening, Dave and Jack. 8 months in, we couldn't have expected fit spots so far. Ange needs to be given more time, at least more transfer windows to get the best out of a full squad. A learning curve as well. I appreciate that, Alpesh Patel. I think some good points there. Killian Kenny says, pick up the Irish Hotspur. I'm going Spurs versus Luton match. Last time in London, I was at Ledley King's. I was at the Ledley King mural. I have not been to a Harry Kane mural yet. Come on, you boys in green. I'm excited about Ireland's new boss. I bet you're excited about the group that you got pulled into as well, Killian Kenny. And I'm glad that you get to go see the next Spurs match against Luton Town. That's a good team to see. I'm a big fan of Luton Town this season. They've kind of been given majority of the Premier League side. It's a really good game this season, so I bet you'd be treated to a good affair. Daniel Sandoval, really good to see you, sir. Darv Hotspur's in the house as well. Leighton Evelyn, the one and only, no chance. Top four, you're happy clapping if you think we can. I'm definitely happy clapping with top four. Leighton Evelyn, that's, I think, the highest that most Spurs fans probably, set us ahead of this season. I think most delusional Spurs fans would probably have gone for like the 5th, 6th, 7th. That's kind of where I was in that realm. But I think putting yourself in top four before a ball was kicked this season really would have taken some cojones. So I'm absolutely proud to be even contending for top four right now, Leighton Evelyn. We've had a lot of blips. We've had a lot of games that I've been frustrated with, but for the most part, I wouldn't really trade where we are. Considering where we are right now, I probably would have bit your hand off for it at the beginning of this season. Big up to you, Leighton Evelyn. Dying to happy clap, as you well know. Paul Longworth in the house as well. King Hoddle, the one and only. Evening all. I'm predicting we finish on 68 points with 6 wins 3 draws, and 4 defeats. That usually doesn't get fourth. And to have any chance whatsoever, we must beat Villa. Europa League looks certain. Come on, you Spurs. At the moment in time, King Huddle, I'm kind of expecting that we will finish around those Europa League spots more likely. It is that Villa game, though, that looks to be kind of the big deciding match this season, because it's between us and another team that I'd say is kind of in that weird limbo kind of position in the table. We just don't really know what they are. Are they a top 4 team, or are they more of a Europa League team? They look more convincing, at least in the last few weeks. But over the course of the season, I think we've been a bit similar to Villa. And so it's going to be a huge deciding match, that one. Jason Bell, really appreciate you tuning in, sir. He says, big up, lads. Very unlikely we'll get top 4. But at the start of the season, I thought 5th was our absolute ceiling. We've done well with a new system and so many new players. I agree with all of that, Jason Bell, and really do appreciate your support. Ryan Gloria's in here. Good to see you. We have the other Mark, member of the Mark Army, and Mark Cook. Good to see the Mark Army, good and strong. Regular gamer, appreciate your support. Offshore Mike, good to see you. Liston Hines is in here as well. I'm all for Bergvall scoring Puskas goals when he joins us in the summer. Yeah, he's been looking terrific, and he's actually making that league look a bit too easy for his, at least for him. So I'm glad that he's coming to us sooner rather than later, because it looks almost too easy for him, Liston Hines, if you ask me. Donovan Osterreicher, $1 billion bottle jaws, rare Gary Neville W. He's broken the internet with that one, Donovan, if you ask me. He really has, because it feels like the moment I tuned into Twitter, all of a sudden I was just seeing all these Gary Neville taglines. So congrats to Gary Neville, really, for breaking the internet with that one. He seemed to be really cooking that one up. It felt like wasn't one that just was a nice word play, kind of in a cunning way. I think he definitely planned that one out. I don't think he's that sort of I don't think he's that special to come up with that in the moment. Big up to you, Donovan Osterreicher. Rick Season here. Holly Hotspurs. Big up to you, Holly Hotspurs. No Holly Hotspurs for once tonight, so happy to be in here. Appreciate you tuning in. Thank you, Holly. Shemtan's in here as well. Good to see you, Shemtan, saying, hey, Jack and Absent Dave. Thank God you're back, because it's been horribly boring without Spurs for so long. Over this weekend, I was bored to have no Spurs at all. Don't get me wrong, Shem, but it can be nice to kind of just look from a distance, look at the other teams around the Premier League, see how they're struggling, see kind of just a bit more drama elsewhere. Like, right, Man United lost this weekend, means that they're kind of, the circle of conversation. They're going to be around the majority of the media space, and Spurs can avoid it, at least for right now. But big up to you, Shemtan. And Tyler, hopefully you're keeping well, sir. Yeah, I'm keeping all right, man. Hopefully you're keeping well too. Mary W, hopefully you're keeping well. And I'm definitely happy with the progress so far. Tiger Lily, good to see Chris Hammer too. Tony Austin in here. Good to see you, Tony Austin. Foggy Foam, absolute legend, Foggy Foam. Good evening, Jacko. Hope all is well, brother. Dull weekend, but proper. Charles managed to bless us. I like I said, Foggy Foam, I was hanging out with the missus on Sunday. Wasn't really doing very much, and was actually trying to avoid it, really. I just didn't want to torture myself watching those two teams go at it in a competition I felt like Spurs should have really given it much more of a go in. And I was just hoping that Liverpool could do a job for me without me having to really watch the game. And luckily they did so. And Pochettino as well. Agent Ponch do a good job for us. Isn't that right, Foggy Phone? Big up to you, sir. Paul Brown's in here as well. Hopefully you're keeping well, Paul Brown. Appreciate you, sir. Alberto's in here. Catman Jess, the one and only Catman Jess, is in here. Big up to Catman Jess. And stay humble. Appreciate your support as a member as well. Stay humble. Milton Nobrega, good day from Australia. It's 6:20 a.m. I like top 4, but I think we will finish 5th. I think a lot of people will probably find themselves in a similar bracket to there, Milton, where they think we do have a chance of top 4, but more likely in that kind of Europa League 5th, 6th kind of spots. And in the beginning of the season, I think I even had us around 7th. So be well above our expectations, that's for sure. Big up to Shawnee Maddox as well. Hopefully you can come on and have your say. I think I do see you now in the background, as well as Ash Panmarish. Feel free to come on and hear your say as well, Ash. Really do appreciate your support. But everybody, again, if you are just joining us, no Davo tonight, but it is just me. Feel free, come on, have a nice chat with myself here. Plenty of questions that I rattled through in the beginning of this show. I'm not going to do them now. The order, and I'm going to type it in just a second here, but the order we do have is Dermatron. We have Brad, Mia, Donovan, and then I think it's Michael, Sean, I believe that's a correct order from what I can tell by how you guys all came in. Well, I've been talking to myself this whole time, but let's get this party rolling. Let's get it started here. We're going to start off with the lovely Dermatron from THFC Till I Die, and smash that like button for us here, everybody. Howdy, Dermot.
How are you, Jack? Nice to be back. Spurs week.
Yeah, nice to be back. Nice to be getting this started on a Monday, and kind of mostly probably because Spurs fans are in withdrawals, right? So I felt like we needed to get the fan show kicked off on a Monday here. Interesting place to start, might as well, because I guess that cup final is still in our minds. A big talking point that we can connect from it to Spurs is, and I even kind of heard you and Mia kind of going at it in the back as well over it, is Jurgen Klopp did end up leaning on some of his younger players to win that game.
Yeah.
Is that something that you wish Ange Postecoglou could have done more this season? Were there opportunities for him to have done that this season?
I would like him to see it do more. Yes, I would. I think that if you're good enough, you're old enough. That's the old heritage. I was impressed with Klopp yesterday. And everyone can use an argument that, oh, he didn't have the bench to do it. But he had faith enough to put them on with faith enough to put them on and put them on a good halfway through the second half. And they did fantastic. And I'm a big advocate of playing the youth, playing the kids. If you're good enough, you should be old enough to play in first team football, and Ange should do it now. Ange may do it next season. I think he will do, but I think he should have done it by now.
Do you feel like majority of fans are going to hope to judge him more on him next season when it comes to how he looks at the younger players, where if we do finish in Europa Conference League, in a Europa League, that they hope that that's where we start to see some of these younger kids be given a chance? Because with this season, with only so much to really play for and play in, maybe it is more difficult to just throw them in there.
I agree with you. Yeah, the Europa League would be great. And the League Cup as well. Throw them into that. I mean, that was the cup every team was putting the youngsters into back in the day. We've gone away from that a little bit. So I think we need to start. They need to get experience. These Liverpool lads got experience of playing in the Premier League, playing in the early rounds of the League Cup, playing in European competitions as well, some of them. So they have the experience of playing on big game opportunities. But also the other thing is, Jack, they go on with no fear. They don't care who they're playing against. They just want to play football. That's all a youngster wants to do. I just want to play football. They don't care if they're playing it at the training ground or at Wembley. It's playing football for them. And them Liverpool kids had no fear yesterday. And I'm not Klopp's biggest fan, but fair play to him for doing it. And thank God Poch didn't win that trophy. I could have bared him seeing him winning the trophy. And also, that's Chelsea's 6th defeat in a row in domestic cup finals, which has actually now become a record, which is they made history yesterday.
That was the nice part, was even if they wanted to blame it on Spursiness or something that Poch has brought over, it's actually their own fault that they've lost so many of these in a row now, right? So it's not even really much to do with Pochettino. It actually was a free hit if you really look at it for how many they've lost in a row at this stage and how bad they've been even this season. It was pretty funny that they even found themselves in a final. Just quickly as well, maybe my last question on that final then, Dermot, does that then bring you back to the beginning of the season, the game that we lost to Fulham, why it was a bit frustrating to have gone out? Because a team like Chelsea, who have been really inconsistent this season, to find themselves with a chance like that to win a final, and it did go down to a, Virgil van Dijk header. Just feels like Spurs could have taken themselves a bit more seriously, or had we just played better. It's a competition that is winnable, it looks like, the Carabao Cup, because Chelsea, like, they found themselves in a final. I don't really feel like having done that much. Like, they didn't really impress me all that much to actually even get there.
No. Look, you can always look back and if we did this, if we did that. Look, it's happened. We went out and it hurt at the time. But I don't blame Ange for doing what he did, because it was the earlier the game he was going to find about these other players in the squad if they were good enough. And they showed him he wasn't good enough. So he had to play them sometime. So the League Cup was the tournament to use them in. But I think next season he may take it a bit more seriously. I think next season he would have learned a lesson from that, and the FA Cup as well. And the FA Cup, we had players missing with Sonny away, and everything seemed to go against us this year in the cup competitions. So I think next season we may get the Rob of the Green, but I think next season he will take that League Cup seriously. Look, winning the League Cup is something. It's a trophy, but it's a trophy that is worth winning. Gets you into Europe as well. And it's the prestige of winning a major trophy. It's the first major trophy you can win in the season. So we've got to take it seriously next season. We could have got the Wembley this year, I think, in the League Cup. And you're right to say if Chelsea can do it, we could have done it. But look, it is what it is. We can't change it. We're disappointed, but we're happy Poch didn't win that trophy. That's all I'm going to say on it.
I'm very relieved, and I was just had definitely a huge breath of relief, a huge breath indeed when I found out about it on Sunday from somebody else, and didn't even end up watching the game. But kind of more on the theme of hindsight and maybe what we could be doing better, or critiques, that sort of thing. Dermotron, a lot of frustration after that Wolves defeat.
Yeah.
People are starting to think Ange is getting found out. His tactics aren't really up to par. He needs to tweak some things. Do you agree with that? Or do you think this is just kind of a blip in kind of this form and this project and everything?
Yeah. I came on last week, Jackie, when Dave was here, and I was very strong in my opinions on them people that wanted Ange out, that I think Ange has been found out. If it wasn't for Ange, we wouldn't be where we are now. If it wasn't for Ange, we wouldn't have got the players we've got in that we have now. If it wasn't for Ange, the culture of Tottenham would not be changing in the background. There was a massive article I read there last week. Dave read it as well, and I think you read it as well, about how he's changing the academies, and he's been likened to Sir Alex Ferguson, how he's changing the culture at the club. We wouldn't be going through this if it wasn't for Ange. So, look, every manager's going to lose games. Every manager's going to have an off day. Every manager's going to probably be out-tacticked by another manager. It's the Premier League. Not every team has a divine right to win every game. So I think Ange, he sticks to his philosophy, and I think he's right to stick to his philosophy. I think he needs to adapt it game by game, though. If you're coming up against a Wolves who we have problems against, the game in the Molineux, we should have taken something from that. Okay, I didn't have my back four, but okay, we might try just tweak it a little bit. But saying that, I don't want Ange to change at all. I want Ange to stay as he is. We wouldn't be where we are if it wasn't for Ange. So look, just get off his back and just let him do what he's got to do, because he will take us to the promised land. We just got to be patient with him. He will get there.
So it sounds like you're fully behind him still then, Dermotron? You
haven't
wavered?
I know what he did up at Celtic. I saw what he did up there. I'm a massive Celtic fan as well as a massive Tottenham fan. So I know what he did up there. And everyone can use the example, the Scottish League is this and the Scottish League is that. You've got to beat what's in front of you in the Scottish League. The Celtic or Rangers are not given the title at the start of the season. They fight for it. And I refuse to watch Celtic now because they're that boring and they're that bad under Brendan Rodgers. It really shows how good of a manager Ange Postecoglou is. How much
it's a fair shout.
How much he's
It's a fair shout to compare what Brendan Rodgers is doing right now, right? Compared to how Ange Postecoglou was. Like, he made the Celtic job look easy, Ange Postecoglou, and right now with Brendan Rodgers, he's being, for the most part, kind of shown to be, maybe not as convincing of a manager, who easily had much more recognition, much more of a good standing, you'd say, with kind of the rest of the football world, or at least the British football world, Brendan Rodgers, than Ange Postecoglou did. Like, Ange had far more doubters going into the job than you'd say Brendan Rodgers, it has in general. So it's an interesting point that you make there. Just sort of on him, in kind of what he could, maybe just to push back on you, actually, Dermot, just with the Scottish League, right? I feel like what Ange could maybe think about, or what he could reconcile with, is the Premier League is devastating when it comes to some of the counter-attacking teams and the power that teams have. Almost every Premier League side has a 30, 40, even 50 million pound winger of some sort in their locker at their disposal that they can hurt you with on the break. And that's happened to Spurs, it feels like, where we are dominating the game, but teams have played that way for a long time this season, where they're getting dominated the majority of the time, losing out in possession, sitting deep in their own half. But most teams in the Premier League are good enough to withstand that pressure and then eventually pick their moments to hurt you. And they usually have good enough players that they only need one or two chances and they can usually score.
It is right. And look, Ange has a set way of playing, Jack, but look, I wonder just about the chat. I know people are putting in the chat Scottish League is a doddle and the Scottish League, it's crap compared to the Premier League. You still got to go and beat them teams. You still got to get them 3 points. I hate these people that don't watch Scottish football and just think Rangers and Celtic win it every year. It's a doddle. Watch the league. Actually watch it. A full season is not this doddle. And Ange had Celtic playing the best football I've seen Celtic play in years. It's come down to it. It took him 7 months to get it right at Celtic. He's come to Tottenham and he's done it in the short space of time. He had us turned around like that. We all know quality, better players. It's a better league. I get that. But he's come down from dominating one league. He will dominate the Premier League and he will dominate it with Tottenham. He will be successful with us. He will turn Tottenham around. And all these people that want Ange out or Ange has been found out or Ange is tactically inept or, don't forget, we had Conte, we had Mourinho, big name managers that didn't do anything for us, that took us down the path of boring football, took us down to the path where we were fighting each other. We've gone back to a manager when we've gone back to our DNA, back to what makes Tottenham Hotspur. And he's bringing joy, he's bringing smiles. Yes, there's going to be bumps in the road. There's going to be frustrating games. There's going to be games where we're all going to be shouting at the TV, what the hell are you doing? But Ange, we're all managers, all of us. But Ange is the man in the hot seat. He's the one that's getting it right. And let's get behind him. Let's be patient with him. And let's get behind the team. We can finish top 4. Right. I think we will get Champions League. I'm sticking my neck on the line. We will finish 4th.
All right.
I think we're going to get sort of 7 wins. I don't think we're going to lose between now and the end of the season. I think out of them 13 games, we're going to get a certain amount of wins and a certain amount of draws. Because we're going to have all our main team back together, fit and ready to go. And that's where it's going to... Other teams will be in Europe, in finals, and we're not. We've got to concentrate on 1 game a week. We can do it, and I know we will.
Got to concentrate on 1 game a week, like you say there. Moondog, earlier member for 27 months. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your service to this channel, Moondog. Hopefully you and Charlie are keeping okay over this weekend as well without any Spurs action of any kind. We're trying to make do with what little we have to work with really here, Moondog. But hopefully you are enjoying this conversation and looking forward to this upcoming weekend. Big up to you and Charlie. Thank you for your support. He's also saying good evening to you as well there, Dermot.
Big up Moondog and 27 months. What a legend. What an absolute legend.
Can you give Moondog here your score prediction ahead of Crystal Palace nice and early, and also give yourself a plug too, please?
I'm going to go for my usual 4-0. I can't budge from that. It's going to work one day. It's got to come in before the end of the season. Yeah, and if you like what I have to say, not everyone likes what I have to say. A lot of people think that I talk shite, and I really don't give a shit what you think. So it's your opinion, and that's mine, and that makes the world go around. We do Newsbeat every day at 4 over me and Philip Brady. We do a few post-match, pre-match watch-alongs. We kicked off our Formula 1 channel as well last night as well. So we're going to start that from next weekend following the Formula 1 Grand Prix circuit this year. So we're going to do watch-alongs to the races, qualifying as well as practice sessions. So it's a busy time over at THFC Till I Die. The brand as a channel has grown a little bit. So yeah, busy times, but please give us a like, give us a subscribe, as we march on for 2K. So, yeah. So,
thanks
a
for
lot
coming
of
on, Dermotron. Thanks for keeping me company,
a lot of
sir.
sports coming up, but busy.
Yeah, as you should be. Try to keep busy. Big up, my man. Hopefully you have a good rest of your week.
Thank you very much
and,
indeed.
See you out of the weekend. Big up, Dermotron.
Big up, Jack. Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs. Big up to Dermot. Everybody do check out THFC Till I Die. And as he said there, it sounds like, his and I's opinions, our delusional opinions, seem to make the world go round, according to Dermot at the moment in time. So more reason to subscribe, more reason to keep supporting the channel. But everybody, hopefully you are keeping well. We're going to keep it moving here. Smash the like button, please, for us. And we're going to go on next to Brad Matthews, man on the blue sofa. There he is.
Hey, Jack, how you doing?
Doing all right. Do you want to continue where Dermot and I left off, kind of around the Ange criticism, or do you want to start someplace else?
No, I go to that. I go back to what I said at the start of the season. I predicted mid-table, so and I said that European football would be an absolutely brilliant achievement. And we're currently in 5th, and we are, I think, 8 points ahead of 7th, which is Brighton, and we've got one more game to play than them. So it's very unlikely, unless something goes dreadfully wrong, that we'll finish any lower than 6. So I'd say at the moment, European football looks very likely. So that's totally more than what I expected at the start of the season. We seem to forget that this is the guy who lost one of the best strikers in the world. The night before our first game, we had all the injury problems. We had the African Cup of Nations problem. People going on that. And I know other clubs had the same things, but we're still sitting in 5th now. Top 4. I personally think we're going to finish 5th or 6th. I think top 4 might be a little bit too much for us. But if we did achieve top 4, I wouldn't be surprised. That's
Is
what
it
I
down
feel.
to that Villa game, do you think?
Yeah, but it's not only the Villa game. We obviously need to win that or even avoid defeat. But we have, I think in April, we've got Arsenal at home, Liverpool away, and Man City at home, I think all in a row. So they're 3 very, very difficult games that we've got to get some points out of. So that will be very, that's very difficult. I don't know what Villa's running is like, but that'll be quite, when you put those 3 games plus Villa away, and Villa have been very strong at home this season, it's going to be difficult, but I'm not saying we can't do it. I just at the moment think it's probably more likely 5th or 6th.
I'm kind of in that region as well, mostly because Spurs have not really shown the consistency, at least of recent, for me to really give enough kind of confidence, kind of with my chest, as people like to say, that we'll finish in that top 4. Whereas maybe a month or 2 ago, I might have probably been a bit more confident. But with kind of everything that's happened this season, Brad, I mean, at some stage, I think a lot of us were saying, God, I'd be really disappointed if we didn't finish in the top 4 with how well we were playing. And now we're saying like, yeah, I think I'd take 5th or 6th. I mean, what's happened? Have we lowered our expectations? Were we being too nice to Ange?
No, we're just being typical football fans. After 10 games, 8 wins and 2 draws, and we're going to win the title. And look, I'll admit I was caught up in that as well. And all right, I didn't think we were going to win the title realistically, but I was caught up in that. We all were, and then suddenly we lose 4 games in a row. Oh, it's rubbish. So we're just being typical football fans. I think the time to judge Postecoglou, or the first judgment of Postecoglou, I think will be at the end of next season. Because this season is always going to be the season of transition. The football he plays is very different to what we've played, certainly under Conte and Nuno and Jose. So we've got to get these players used to that. We've strengthened the squad somewhat. Well, I think we still need that diamond player, that star player, or maybe 2 of them to actually put the icing on the top of the cake. But we're getting there. It's gradual. It's going to be a gradual process. He's only been here for 24 games, 25 games. It's too early to judge Postecoglou. Yeah, we can have opinions on how the football we're playing, and I've been critical of him. I thought he was a bit defensive against Brentford and Everton, where he brought on the 3rd central defender, to try and have what we hold, sort of thing. It worked against Brentford, didn't work against Everton. So I was critical in that. I was critical of him for the 9 changes he made in the Fulham League Cup game. But his reckoning was I need to see these players, or whatever time I've got to see these players. So he's a football manager at a big club. I'm just a guy watching on telly or at the ground. So yeah, it's okay to be critical of him, but let's give this guy time. And then let's face it, it's not only have we changed their football, it's changing the whole culture at the club. This team was rock. This club was rock bottom, absolutely rock bottom at the end of last season. I've never felt so disheartened at the end of last season. I, like many people, were considering giving up my season ticket, but I didn't, and I'm glad I didn't now. So he's changing the culture at the club. It's going to take time. I agree with what Dermot said about the youngsters. I think Liverpool youngsters have had experience in the Premiership, so they were a little bit more ready than our guys to come on in that final. But I think we've got some good youth players. I think Ange will play them, but only he knows whether they're good enough to play. It's not. I can't say whether Jamie Donnelly is good enough to play or whether these guys are good enough because I've never seen them play. I've heard what people have said about them, and I respect people's judgment that they're decent players, but I can't say you should put them in there. But I think the future looks if we play it right, a good window in the summer. We put out a little bit of money. We're talking about, and this is where the board are going to be tested now. They're talking about, I think, £80 million for Neto, the Wolves player. And this is where we have to say, right, we're going to fork out a little bit extra money to get these decent players in. That's been my whole criticism of Levy and the board over these years, is that not putting the boat out a little bit extra to get the players that could make the difference.
Yeah. And I would love to have two Pedros in a team as well. That's always been a goal of mine for this Spurs team. Just before we get to Martin Knightsbridge super chat here, big up to you, Martin. Hopefully you're keeping well. This noche sounds like you were having a lovely time in Madrid. And by the way, just before I'll touch on it in just a second, but Luka Modric scored a worldie by what I saw from the highlights. So I'm amazed that you got to see that in person. But Brad, kind of maybe to, I don't know, bring something up that Dermot was talking about from earlier, where Ange, did much better in the Celtic job, for example, than what Brendan Rodgers is doing right now in the job. Sort of shows that he is still a good manager. And with kind of maybe how much time has passed, it feels like we've had moments to see Ange mess up or maybe make a mistake or not get something right. But we also have had enough time to see whether he is worth it, whether he is, worth the minerals. It feels like, compare him to Pochettino, other managers that have also just come into the job. Like I think he's in good ground. Like I think he's shown most Spurs fans like enough so far to deserve a bit of faith, to get that kind of a benefit of the doubt. But maybe in some fans' mind, he hasn't done enough to convince them.
Well, the guy is 58 years old. He's had coaching experience all around the world in various different leagues. He always seems to have stepped up a level. So he's gone from the Australian League to the Japanese. Well, I don't actually know whether the Australian League, Japanese League, but they're similar leagues. But he's gone up and he's won in a different league. He's come to Scotland, where he said himself, if you don't win the treble at Celtic, you're a failure. And he won 5 out of 6 in 2 seasons. And you only have to look at I looked at the table tonight. Rangers are on top of Celtic now. So you can't deny he was successful there. And when you go to the Premiership has got a better players, but then he's got better players. His resources are better than what he had at Celtic. They're better than what he had at Yokohama. So that goes. So you still got the same. You still have to work with the same sort of players. It's just that the standard goes up. They're still doing the same things that you're asking them to do. And people say, he hasn't come up against decent managers. Well, we look at our results. We drew at Arsenal 2-2. We drew at Man City 3-3. We beat Liverpool. We beat United. So he hasn't done too bad against these top managers. Okay, you could argue we were against Liverpool. We got the benefit of 2 sending offs and a VAR decision, but we still won the game. Still points on the board. So, I don't buy this. He hasn't come up against the experienced managers yet. Well, give him a chance. It's the first time he's come up against Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp and such like. So. Yeah, it's people are very quick to sort of say, this and that. But it's been at the club for 25 games,
Yeah. And I think if you were to criticize him for what he's gotten wrong, you certainly have to look at also the periods from when he was getting it right. And like I said at the beginning of the show, he gave the Premier League a bit of a shake, he rattled the Premier League with how I think he came into things, just pretty much just destroying teams left and right, dominating Arsenal for periods, like in a North London derby in their stadium in the beginning of the season. The way that we were coming out against other teams as well, was just pretty much brushing them aside, making them feel like they were pretty much just, it was like boys against men at certain, periods this season between us with Ange Postecoglou. So I feel like he's done enough for me to give him the benefit of the doubt. I hope that's the case with majority of the Spurs fans, but doesn't totally seem to be the case. There's definitely more people coming out now with kind of the doubts. And it seems to even be a bit similar to what it was with Antonio Conte, actually, for me, Brad, where like Antonio Conte, he's being criticized for not playing, enough on the front foot, not attacking enough. And now with Ange, it's all of a sudden, oh, it's too attacking, needs to think about more game management. Maybe he should look at a 3 in the back, various things, right? It's a bit funny.
I said at the time, look, we got beat by Wolves, and Wolves are a decent team. They've beaten us twice, they've beaten Chelsea twice, they've beaten Man City, so they ain't no mugs. Now, if you look at it wasn't so much the tactics that cost us that game, because we're always going to be vulnerable to teams that can break, but we've generally handled it pretty well. The second goal we conceded against Wolves, was poorly defended. It wasn't down to tactics; it's just poorly defended.
Yeah,
and the corner that we conceded for was poorly defended. So you got to get those, you get those stuff right, and you're fine. I don't think it's to do with the tactics. Now, I don't particularly agree with zonal marking, but that's what we seem to play, and I think Conte played zonal marking as well. But as I say, the second goal that Wolves scored, it was a good goal, but we defended it incredibly poorly. So, and the other thing about that Wolves game, I wasn't on the show last week to discuss the Wolves game, was that you can blame the defence for conceding 2 goals, but our attack was rubbish that day, absolute garbage. So any other day when we play better in the attacking third. And I think the difference in that, I think the 2 players that we lack, the player we lack at the moment, the thing that was good about Harry Kane and Jason Defoe before him was the ability to get the ball, one touch, and have a shot from outside the box. And, 7, 8 times out of 10, it will go in. We don't seem to have that player at the moment. I think we really missed that. And, I've lost count of the time.
That goal that many times this season, I'd say. Like,
exactly.
Where someone has just, like Pedro Porro's goal, for example, against Burnley. And that's probably the only one I can even think of for the most part.
On Twitter, they showed the FA Cup replay against Leeds. And the 2 goals we scored from Darren Anderton and Ginola were brilliant goals from outside the box, taking shots. And I think we need to get that into our game. We seem to be trying to walk the ball into the net at the moment.
Or the days of Gareth Bale saving us on every occasion with a 40, with a 40-mile-an-hour, or 40-yard missile, from some place. You would just put us on the back. Yeah.
So it's okay. We could be vulnerable. We could be, but once we start scoring more goals, and we should have. You should really, and this gets me when the fans have a go at time wasting. Well, if we're 1-0 up, 2-0 up, the other team doesn't time waste. So I think we need to look at our attacking side of the game as well as this defensive issue that we have by conceding more goals. We need to score goals as well. So there's work to be done. There's work in, but I think the signs at the moment are positive, and we've got to stay positive. And let's have our opinions on Postecoglou and his tactics and that, but let's not judge the guy until at least to the end of next season. Well, we have a team that have played his way, hopefully got some more players in. We really missed the fullbacks against Wolves. That was very, very telling. That Davis and Emerson, they do their best, but we need better players in that, to come on if we lose Udogie and Porro. So we that sort of brought that up, really. It's nothing against Emerson, nothing against Davis, but that did definitely show that we need those quality players in certain positions.
Martin Knightsbridge saying, "Evening, Jack and Tron. I was at Real Madrid last night, and I'm going to the Palace game Friday. Hopefully we win, as my son is coming with me." Martin, and he also said, actually, I got the goal on video, Jack. I'll send it to Dave. And yes, was a worldie. Luka Modric does what he does there, Martin. And this season even, right? Like, he's actually been a bit more of a background kind of player. They've thrown the old man to the side, actually, which is kind of sad to see.
40, is he 40?
Yeah, I think he's approaching 40, if not already is. And he's not been the biggest, the biggest player for them this season. But just when they needed somebody to step up, the old man, does what he does. The goat of the itches, if you ask me, Martin Knightsbridge, definitely one of the goats of the itches. And actually, Brad, maybe one of my last questions before we let
yeah, I
you
was
go
going to
here.
say,
Would you take a Luka Modric back on a free of some
no,
kind?
I mean that's just silly, really. I mean, maybe 5-6 years ago, but no, it's just
yeah.
But I hope Martin, I hope your son enjoys the game on Saturday. If it's first game at Tottenham, well then, yeah, that's always a memorable game, memorable day. And I think the young lady next to me against Newcastle, it's her son's first game, and we won 4-1. So I had to sort of say, you must explain to him it's not always like this sort of thing. So yeah, but hopefully you'll enjoy, and hopefully we'll get a win, which I think we will. I think we'll win on.
Are you headed to the game as well, Brad?
Yes, I am. Yes, I'll be going to the game. Yep. I was at the Wolves game, but I wasn't very particularly well, so I basically didn't stay after and just literally went home after the game. But it was a poor game. But hey, you know, poor games.
And I'm glad that you also told Martin that it's a Saturday, because hopefully, Martin, that your tickets are for the Saturday game, not for the Friday game, because there is no game on Friday. By the way,
I guess the good thing about that, if he turns up on Friday and he gets the day wrong, he's still got the Saturday to go to the game. If he got it wrong and thought it was on the Sunday, then he would have missed the game. So
first one at the pub he'll be if he shows up.
If you're going to make a mistake, do it that way. Do the Friday rather than Sunday. So yeah, it is Saturday, 3:00 kickoff. Appreciate
your support there, Martin, and I'm glad you had a wonderful night last night. I would love to head over to see the new Bernabeu as well, kind of like, you know, Spurs' new stadium, kind of 2 state-of-the-art stadiums in a week that you actually get to see, right? So good for you, my friend. Good for you, and hopefully you do have a good time with the kiddo as well. But Brad, unless you have any final opinions, any final takes, give yourself a plug, please.
No, as I said, I think we'll win. We'll beat Palace. I can't say it's going to be comfortable, but I think we'll win. And yeah, we just got hope that we can bring the form that we had the first 10 games of the season for the last 10 or last 13 and see where we finish. But yes, Blue Sofa Songs, for anyone that doesn't know, that's my music channel where I write and record my own songs, play all the instruments, although the drums are loops. And the brass section is basically from a keyboard. But yeah, please check out my latest song, which is called Sense of Wonder. I think it's one of the best songs I've done for a while. And it's getting some good reviews on, well, say reviews, and not I mean the enemy or anything, but yeah, it's getting a good sort of thing on YouTube. But it'd be really great if you could go over there and check it out, drop a like, comment, all that sort of stuff, all that really nice stuff. And again, as I say every week, thanks to Jack and the boys for letting me plug my channel. And I'm up to 187 subscribers now. I've gained 7 over the weekend, so that's promising.
There you go.
Try and get to 200 by the end of the week. But yeah, I'd be really, really appreciative if you could do that for me, please.
Thanks for making the fan shows what they are, Brad, and giving people the confidence, like I say to you, giving people the confidence, maybe come on and have a chat themselves.
Yeah, it's listen. If you're out there and you want to come on and you're feeling a little bit nervous about it, don't. It's just like having a chat with your mate. That's basically what it's like. Or if Dave's on the show, having a chat with your mates. And that's what it's like. It's really nothing to be scared about or worried about. It's a good way to get all our opinions out there, and that's what they are. They're opinions, and everyone has different opinions, and we have to respect each other. So peace and love out there.
Well done, Brad. Well done. Well, I hope you have a good rest of your week, sir. And everybody, please check out Blue Sofa Songs and show Brad some love, please, and do check out the new song as well. I also like the title of it. Definitely a good name. There's
a nice little video clips of it's not me pranking around with a guitar this time. It's actually video clips which I had to pay bloody money for as well. I didn't realise. I got the whole video done, and then it suddenly goes, "Oh, you can't have these unless you pay for them." So yeah, so I had to pay for the video clips. So yeah, thanks for that.
No worries. Brad, have a good rest of your week, sir. And
you too,
I hope you run into Martin as well at the game.
Yes. Come on. If you see me there, Martin, just say hello. Come up and say hello.
Definitely pull over, Brad. But have a good week, rest of your week.
You too, Jack.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Come on, you Spurs. Big up to Brad Matthews here, everybody. Please, everybody, check out Blue Sofa Songs. Show him some love. And if you run into Brad at the game, feel free to say hello, because I imagine if anybody does watch these fan shows and only goes to so many games, you might end up running into Brad, because I know he goes on a regular basis. I've run into him at the games as well. Lovely man. Please do pull him over. But let's keep this show on the road. Let's keep it moving here. I believe we have Mia. So we're going with the 3 regulars, Dermatron, Brad, and then Mia third. See what she has to say. We have Donovan after that. Michael, and then Sean. Anybody else who wants to come on after that, feel free to do so. But let's go on over to Spurs Between the Lines. Mia. Howdy, Mia.
Howdy. You ready to read between the lines?
I was about to steal your, I realized I was almost about to steal your intro.
Joe, what? I heard on the grapevine that Mr. Sean Butler has also stolen it. I'm not happy about the situation. People are stealing my stuff.
He's got to cite his sources there if he's going to be doing that. And I almost did it, but luckily avoided it there.
Just about.
Do you want to kick off kind of with the similar questions? There's other ones that I had where Hugo Lloris had some weird quotes kind of about, the Pochettino era, if you're interested in that at all. But
Joe,
there's also that thing that you and Dermot were talking about.
Yeah, the thing that me and Dermot were talking about. Let's go with the thing that me and Dermot were talking about the youth players, right? Is that what you were talking about?
Yeah. So the lesson everybody's taken from that final is that it feels like people or Ange should be doing what Jurgen is doing. He should be giving more confidence to his kids.
Yeah. Do you know what? It's a funny one, Jack, because I've always said that I believe if Ange thinks they're ready, he'll play them, because you've got to remember our squad is fairly young already, right? It isn't like he isn't letting players that we've got that are younger not play. Because in the midfield, we could easily say no to Sarr and put someone like a Højbjerg to play, but he doesn't. He wants to play Sarr. Do you know what I'm saying? So there are players in our squad that are still young. They're still young. Mm-hmm. And I think that we don't know the level of our youngsters in comparison to the Liverpool ones. So I do think that we have to be a little bit careful with their confidence. I've always said this. If we chuck them in and we do rubbish, everybody is going to be like, oh my God, why did he do that for? We've not got top four. We could have got top four and he chucked the youngsters in. And I just don't think that's going to work. So, but on the flip side, people could say, well, actually, the kids can come on, no fear, have that confidence. But then they could lose their confidence. Like, we just don't know. And I feel like Ange is a good judge because he's taken youngsters in the past and he's played them. And I think he'll do so as long as they are ready. I really do believe that. I don't think that Ange is going to just chuck them in. Because if Klopp had better, like the more experienced players, I think he would have played them. He wouldn't have played those youngsters. So experience always holds out, right? The person who got their goal was Van Dijk, the most experienced player and their captain. So that just shows you how valuable that little bit of like know-how to get them across the line.
It's what Jason sort of is saying here, right? Where it wasn't even really the kids that had won it. It was kind of maybe some of the Chelsea players choking towards the end. And like you even brought up there, it was actually Van Dijk, the most experienced player debatably on the pitch that ended up winning the game. Yes, the kids held their own, but it's not necessarily the case that they had won it for, Liverpool or anything like that. Would you subscribe to this theory that I've heard before, that I probably even have used at some stage this season, Mia, that Ange could take a bit of pressure off himself from some of the fan base if he did lean on the youngsters and use them every so often? And maybe games like the Wolves game or other games where we're missing a player in a certain position, and if he had just gone for a younger player in that position, he would actually take pressure off of himself because we would just view it a bit differently because it is an academy kid. Do you think that is true? Not true? What do you feel about that?
I don't think that's true, Jack, because we made changes in the cup and look what people said. People were going off on one about it, and I did as well because I didn't agree with it. The fact is if we did it in an important game and we lost that game, people would say, what's he doing playing the youngsters? I don't think it would take any pressure. He can't do right for doing wrong, basically. He could play the youngsters and it could go well, but he could not play the youngsters and it could still not go well. He could do both and it could still go. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's so difficult for us as outsiders who don't see these players time and time again. I know somebody commented, well, we're top of the league on our under 21s, but that's 21s playing against 21s. These are boys against men. The jump up to the 11 in a men's team is big. You've got to have a little bit of something about you to be able to do that. And when you even if you look at other teams, not often does it happen where you get maybe like Arsenal's got Bukayo Saka, but anyone everyone else, they've a bit, not that they haven't had mass loads of kids come through. So I do think that people kind of say it maybe because at the moment they're feeling a bit fed up with who we've got in the team, and I get it. But you can't just keep thinking that we're going to chuck those youngsters when, as Ashby says, we have got young players in the team. What we actually probably need is a little bit more of maybe a little tiny bit older who's got that little bit more experience, because that also helps within a game.
Yeah, Ash is agreeing with you here, basically with your point that he already has exceptionally young talent that he's leaning on already in Udogie, Sarr, Van de Ven, Johnson, and plenty of others. Like you could throw in that list in there as well. And he's putting a lot of faith in these guys that are really talented and really good for their age, but it's not like they have that much experience or have played enough games to know what to do in every situation, or even know how to handle themselves when times are rough, or not really on a high, maybe more of a low. All these kind of things like are kind of you're not going to get with the younger players. And probably a fair point, actually. I haven't even thought about it that way, where there are already so many young kids. Can you even fit any more in, right, in this moment in time? Like, right, can you even get any more young kids in there?
I think one of most of the time in the Prem, we put out like the third youngest. Do you know what I'm saying? Like team. So you've got to understand that. That's I just think it's just. I know what people are saying. You get hunger, determination from them. Like I say, no fear. But I just think that it will be really silly of us to do that when I think there's a lot of pressure already, because people are desperate for us to get top 4. Me, I said 6th, 7th, and I still stick with 6th, 7th. I think the max we'll get is 5th. So I'm not putting that pressure on the team, because I think this season was one to see what happens. So I wasn't doing that. But because everyone's now saying we should get 4th, are you telling me that if we play the kids and we don't get 4th, that people aren't going to be upset about that? Of course they will be. And they'll say, why did you play the kids?
It's one of those questions where will everybody really live by what they say? Will they own up to what they had said earlier?
That's what I'm saying. Will people really stick to it? I always try and be consistent with my opinions, and I understand that things can adapt and change as things happen. But I honestly think that people would lose their mind if we were that close. Jack, if we were one game away from getting 4th, and those kids were the ones that cost us getting that 4th, people would go mad. People would.
Be an interesting experiment at some stage to for sure see how it goes down.
No.
Al Ben, speaking of, you brought up expectations and kind of exceeding them, right? Al Ben from earlier, I just thought this was a funny comment saying, glad everyone's expectations are down now. That means we are going to finish top 4. Just what this team does, disappoints and surprises. I'm assuming Ange has exceeded your expectations this season, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. He's exceeded my expectations. For me, I said this is a bit of a one that we're going to have bumps in the road. Like I say, I said 6th, 7th. Honestly, I was like, that's for me, this season will be fine as long as we see progress. And we have seen progress in some games, but not all games. But we all know that when you're implementing a new system, that's going to happen, right? We've still got players who have been playing a different kind of way. We've got new players who have to learn Ange's way. So you've got to understand that takes time. To get that fluidity between players takes time, because you have to know instinctively where they are on the pitch. And I just think that we haven't had that opportunity with injuries and people going away. And we've had, obviously, people being suspended. So I do think that for me, it would be absolutely acceptable to get 6th. It wouldn't matter to me. If we got 6th or 7th, I wouldn't be mad. I wouldn't be upset about it, because I would understand this is our first season. I'm not judging Ange like that. And I think from where we were, I know people saying points wise, but don't forget at one point in the season we had loads of teams with maybe the same points, but people were ahead of us with not ahead, but they had games in hand. So I think it was a bit of a false place where we were when Conte left, because they had games in hand. But when it comes to how I feel about my club, I feel completely differently now, because although we have games where we're like, oh my God, what are we doing? We also have those moments where we're like, oh my God, like when we played at the Scumbags, and we drew. Oh my God, do you know what? That was one heck of a game. And we gave it to them good. We gave it to them real good. And I loved it. Every single moment of that, I absolutely loved. So like moments like that, and we didn't have those much with Conte. So I can see that we're progressing. We have those small moments, and those moments are going to be more consistent over time, that we're going to have better moments.
Yeah, that's what I had kind of brought up earlier, I think, with Brad, where has Ange done enough at periods this season to convince you, right? Like that he is worth putting that faith in. And I think that game, the North London Derby, would be a good one to refer to, right? Like, when's the last time a Spurs manager has gone into the Emirates like that and put in, and set up the team in that way, played that sort of daring type of style and got a result like that? It's been a long time, at least in my memory, since we've ever done that, if not probably my whole lifetime.
The thing is, as well, Jack, people were saying about Ange coming up against different managers. Now, when he played Real Madrid with Celtic in the Champions League, now that was one hell of a game. Now, they were obviously lost, but they did not fear them. They did not fear them. And that's what you want, right? You want to go into every game thinking, I'm not fearing you. And that's what Ange installs into his players. And it does take a season. Everyone said Celtic, first season, they got lots of injuries. It was a bit up and down, not as good. But that second season is when everything just flowed, everything come together. So I do think it will take time, but he didn't fear them. When he played Real Madrid, man, he did not fear them at all. And that is how we were when we played Arsenal. I didn't fear them. I was hyped for that game, super hyped. The only problem we've got now is to be able to do better when teams do play a low block. Now, I don't think that Ange has been worked out. I think what happens is that we haven't got the players. So he wants to play exactly the same way. But if he can play with different players, so if one set of wingers aren't working, he wants to bring on two new wingers that can do something a bit different to play the same way, but just with different skill sets. We haven't got that currently at the moment. We haven't got as many options. So I think that's the problem. And I don't want him to change how he plays, because that's not what Ange is going to do. He adjusts tactics within games, but I don't think he's going to change it. In order for it to work, you have to keep going with it. You've got to keep going with it. And he will get the players playing it more fluid, like I say, in a more fluid way. And when we've got players that are better, that if we don't work with those players, we can go, right, okay, cool, we'll just bring these players on instead. That's when you'll see the difference, because he'll be like, right, plan A didn't work, plan B is to play plan A better. And that's with different kind of players, because that's what he likes.
Players that can step in and still perform the instructions and the tactics that he says out for them.
Different, but just someone who's different. So a winger who does something different, a striker who does something different, because you can't always rely on that's them players who play that way. You have to be able to change it up. But he doesn't want to change up how he actually plays, which is attacking football. We all wanted to see attacking football. None of us wanted to see defensive football. So in a way, we sort of have to get used to the fact that we're going to have a few bumpy moments before we get to that point where we're going to see that more often than not. You know what I'm saying? It does take that little bit of time.
Definitely know what you mean. And ahead of this Crystal Palace game, Mia, I'm a bit annoyed that they've hired a new manager ahead of this game. Do you see this being a different Crystal Palace, or like a better one than we came up against recently or last time out? Do you kind of fear about a bit of a manager bounce? Because I believe in the manager bounce.
I think that didn't Palace win, but they had a player sent off in that game, not the
Burnley did, yes.
Burnley did.
So and it took a while for them to score.
You've got to take that into consideration. So they didn't absolutely smash them when they've obviously had a player sent off too. So I think that the way that Palace play, if they've changed how they play, that might make it easier for us. I'm not sure if they've got players out, who's out and who's not. But of course, they have got dangerous players in Elise and Eze are great players. But I think as long as we've trained well for these 2 weeks and we've really put in the hard work, I think we can beat them. I think there's absolutely no reason for us not to beat them. I think it'd be a hard game, a tough game, but I think we've got enough to beat them, especially, like I say, if Ange has been on them in those training sessions to do better, you know, quicker. Don't do this slowly. Stop doing the same thing over and over again. If you know a player is going to if you're going to cross it in there into the box and you know a player's going to header it out all the time, don't do those crosses because you know they're just going to get headed out. Do something a bit different. Put it in lower or just try and hit it from outside the box. Try that. Yeah. Hit it from outside the box because if it pings inside the box, Jack, there's plenty of players in there. You don't know where it's going to bounce.
Do you agree with that? You agree with that conversation then Brad and I were saying where we haven't had that many goals this season of players just having a hit from 30, 40 yards or even just right outside the box and see what happens.
Sonny used to do that, Jack, and he doesn't seem to do it as much anymore, which is so disappointing because he's fantastic with his right and left foot outside the box, but he just ain't been doing that as much, which is is a bit frustrating because that's another little bow to our bow to the thing we've got. Like we could do that outside the box, but we just ain't been doing it, which I don't know why. We need to do something different, basically. If we can't just keep playing the same way over and over again and keep expecting that to work. We need to do better with our set pieces. We don't take advantage of set pieces. We're absolutely rubbish at set pieces at the moment, which is driving me absolutely bonkers. Every time we get a set piece, I'm like, what's the point? We're not going to do anything with it. So I think we just have those little things that we need to improve on massively.
Back to the days of us being toothless from set pieces, going forward, but then also conceding them at a healthy rate, like recently too.
Yeah, it's been useless.
That's been a common occurrence in my time as a Spurs fan. And at one stage, I felt like maybe last season, felt like that had kind of gone away a bit, but it's not going to go away forever. It looks like. Spurs between the lines, Mia. How can they read between the lines? Now I stole your line. What's going on over there? What's happening?
I've actually been a little bit quiet really because obviously we don't have football and I've been a bit busy. My absence last week was because I was actually at a funeral. So obviously I've had a lot of things going on as well. So I've been a little bit quiet this week, but I will be back doing match reviews, match previews. I'll be on with the girls. When we do today's debate, I'll do that live match reactions as well. So there's always plenty coming up. I do shorts as well, and I also do transfer news and like just different kind of news and stuff to keep people updated in what's going on.
Nice. Well, everybody, please check out Mia. Please, everybody, show her some support. Head on over to Spurs Between the Lines. Had a great conversation with her, and I imagine if you head on over her channel, you'll see similar conversations and get to hear her opinions even more. But Mia, pleasure. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Please make sure you smash the like button for Jack. And of course, Dave, we miss you. I miss having someone to argue with today. So.
Yeah, I know. Can't do that, unfortunately. I tried my best, but Dave, much better skilled at it. It's in his repertoire. Hopefully you have a good rest of your week heading into the weekend, and let's grab a win this weekend.
Thanks a lot, Jack. Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs. See you, Mia. Everybody, check out Mia from Spurs Between the Lines, please. Show her some love. And everybody, go subscribe. Bring her over. Keep supporting the channels. Keep supporting all the lovely Spurs channels in this community. But we're going to keep it rolling here, everybody. We're going to move on to, looks like Donovan Osterreicher. You're up next, sir. You and me got to sit down, have a chat. What's up, Donovan?
How's it going, Jack?
Good to see you, sir. How are you?
Yeah, good to see you too, man. Just kind of restlessly waiting for another Spurs day. What can you do? I working a job. Just got a book coming out. Just trying to take on 2024 and all the blessings that come with it. So
that's lovely to hear. And I do have a bit of feedback in the background. I'm just gonna
let me turn you down here.
I was going to move past it. And all right, lovely. Donovan, where are you at with the Ange criticism, sir? Should he be working on some things over this period? Are you a little upset that people are offering so much criticism towards him? Where do you stand on that? Because, even recently with the Jurgen Klopp use of the kids, everybody's saying that Ange should be using the kids more often.
Yeah, is that feedback better? I just turned you down there, I think.
Slightly better, but I can work past it.
Okay. No so if you're a happy Klopper, Jack, then that makes me a yes man. Because
come on.
I've just notoriously have been banging the drum of blindly following the leader pretty much since Pochettino started taking us to that level. And I had to think of Theos that, like, hey, is it wrong to question what's ahead of you? Does it make you better? Yeah, it does. So, yeah, we can question some of the things he's done. But maybe that's not just through him. I think that's the development of the squad. I think it's a process. I think we have a lot of players that are from different leadership groups. We have some Conte players in there. We got some Jose players still up to go. We are kind of directionless as a club, kind of just making impulse buys of like, oh, this player might be worth, $17 million this year. Let's get him, rather than taking deals and bargain bin findings. And we've assembled this squad, not so much anymore. We've done a good job of weeding out the deadwood, but it brings us to a part where we have such mixed and ends of players in a squad. And so there's only so much Postecoglou can come and immediately change. It's going to be a process that takes time, in my opinion. And I think he's proven in his time at Spurs that he's a competent leader, and he can work wonders when he gives the right tools. So it's about patience, and I know I say that every time I'm on here, but it's about patience of windows. And I think tactically, though, it's quite frustrating to see us dominate games for such portions of it, and then with one play and one swift counter or one misplaced pass, it just seems all of our hard work seems coming crashing down and out of and almost to nothing. You look at the Wolves game. How many times under previous tenderships like Jose and Conte were we that Wolves squad where we just sit back and absorb pressure, and that seems to be that's how we got our results in the past. And
yeah,
it's just taking more liberties when we do have that possession. Like Mia was saying, move the ball faster. Be a bit more confident going forward, and maybe that takes away some of the sting. But yeah, a long win for a short fall there. I think Ange is doing just fine.
Yeah, and isn't even the better question, has Ange done enough to convince you to get more faith, to give him more of the benefit of the doubt? Because, after this much time has passed, there are going to be moments when the manager is going to get something wrong. Like it's very unlikely he's going to pitch a perfect game, so far. So he's going to have things that he gets wrong, right? But has he done enough to get something right to convince you?
Yeah. I'll play the devil's advocate to that, because I can praise a guy till the cows come home. But if I were to look at it the other way of it, it's that you could say that he's learning on the job. I mean, this is his first time in the Premier League, right? So maybe it is. I'm not going to use the word naivety, but I am going to say naive, for lack of a better word. That some of these clubs and most of these clubs have the ability to or have at least 4 or 5 players in their first team that can really seriously damage squads, damage teams, and some of these clubs have they might not be pushing for titles or trophies or regular honors, but sustainability in the Premier League is nothing to shake a stick at. The fact that Brighton and Brentford and Aston Villa have developed models where they are sustainable and they are successful at what they do. They have a model and a certain brand of players that they go out and target that fits that system and fits their ideology. And so when you come up against a new system that's learning and there's growing pains and stuff, the players that have already been in certain systems and ways of playing can have joy. We saw that with Neto, right? You see that every week with how Brighton passed the ball. And Postecoglou is going to get there. We've seen that already. We've seen passages of play. There's certain periods of games where we've just playing teams off the park. You can see the ideology he wants to do, and you can see that we've improved in taking the ball under pressure, our passes went up like ridiculous amounts from last year. I think there was a game last year where we barely got 150 passes, and now we're like well into the 600 to 700 passes per game. So yeah, there are some stuff that Ange needs to work out. Maybe that's just the lack of depth. But
has he been? Do you think at some stage this season he would have left a game feeling a bit, I don't know, found out, outclassed, or like, do you think he's maybe taken some lessons from certain managers this season, like whether it's been that Everton game where he's been dominated at times, Man City, Brighton?
I think yes. I think not in the fact that he was outclassed, but I think he had his eyes open for like how much quality is actually in this league, and how on it we have to be as a club in order for his ideology to be successful. Because I don't think there's anything wrong with his methods and the Ange ball, so to speak. Because you look at our top 6 results, and they've improved so much from last season and the last couple of years, and you can tell that works against teams that won't give us the respect, that will come out and pressure us and leave us that space into playing behind. And when we do have the likes of Bissouma playing well, and the likes of Bentancur, and particularly Bissouma, if you have Bissouma playing well, that opens up so many opportunities, because Van de Ven's going to give you a 6 or 7 out of 10, and Romero can find those passes to split the lines. But when you have a quality number 6 that can get on the ball in that half space, and I mean half space, there are points in the early season where he would be double marked in between 2 players, maybe touching distance on both shoulders, and he would find a way to wiggle out and not just like make a backwards pass, but actually beat his man and progress the ball maybe 20, 30 feet up the field. And just having that alone opens up so much, and the ability to play through teams. So if anything, Ange would have just learned that, you have to be on it, because there's teams that'll hurt you, man. And I hate to say it, but like Wolves did the double on us. Like that's it's unacceptable going forward. So he'll learn from that. And everybody says this, that it's about the second season with Ange Postecoglou, once he's had his time and once he's had the players. I'm really looking forward to the summer, because we're in a position financially to be one of the best out there in the Premier League. So now it's up to the leadership group to see if we actually exploit that, because we got a lot of money on it. We're sitting on a lot of money.
Do you believe in a marquee signing this summer? Like a big bad boy like Pedro Neto coming through for 80 million whoppers? Do you see that happening, or Spurs are going to maybe go for something else?
Yeah, I see a marquee signing for sure, Jack, but I don't think it's Pedro Neto. I think Pedro Neto is going to go to City. I personally believe he's going to go to City, and I personally believe that Jack Grealish might be on the cards for another place. Maybe to Chelsea. They've done business there with Raheem Sterling. Maybe Todd Bowley has connections there. I don't see Jack Grealish staying much longer at City. Only 20 starts and 40 appearances and 27 appearances in total this season. And I could see him moving on like Cancelo did and Sterling did for more game time. But I'm marquee signing. I think it has to be the right signing. I think nobody wants to admit it, but I think we have to start looking at another superstar. Whether that's what we did with Son in the first place, get him while he's young and then develop into a star, or I think we need a ready-made star right now, though, because most of our success was based off of a superstar, Kane, and so we haven't really replaced that. And Tottenham Hotspur have always had that big name up front, whether that be like the Keane or the Defoe, the Berbatov, the Van der Vaart, have your pick. If I were to throw a name out there, I think any one of the left-siders would be a good shot. Rafael Leao. He didn't have the best season, but we know what's in there. I'm not even going to attempt his name, but the Georgian winger who plays for Napoli, I think.
Kavica.
Him. Just a couple off the top of my head there. But we definitely need a marquee signing. But like I said, it's not about splashing the cash. There's no point of wasting $100 million and then being dubbed the bottle jobs of the blue bottle jobs by a pundit, right? You want to spend your money right. And I think if anything, this final that we all laughed at and made fun of Chelsea for is open up the eyes of English clubs of, hey, maybe our talent is as good. I'm not going to put my faith in a Will Lancashire, but he's caught my eye. And I think that if any of our talents were to step up, I think it would be Will Lancashire. I think he's a very well developed product. He's big for his age, and I'm not the one to bang on the youth. I don't. I've seen Dane Scarlett come through, and I want him to do well. And he fluffed his chance in the Europa League that one time, and I remember that was a chance he went through, and he missed it, and that was make or break. And it's nice and it's a good story, but it's not realistic. But the only one that's caught my eye in the last couple of years, Will Lancashire. So I'm gonna give him a shout out, Will Lancashire.
I like the Will Lancashire shout out. Do you think it's fair that Spurs fans have looked at what Jurgen did in that game, put that on Postecoglou? Like they feel like Postecoglou could take more of a page out of Jurgen's book, or do you think that's kind of harsh to put that on Postecoglou?
I think Ange will start using the youth once he has his first team set up. It's like, okay, let's finish renovating the bathroom before we move on to the kitchen. Let's get one thing done right first, and then put it on, because you don't want to be spinning too many plates, have them all come down, and then with Jurgen Klopp, it's a different scenario, and the fact that he's had years and years to drill that Liverpool side, that they're even going through a little bit of a rebuild themselves. The fact that he's such a good man manager and system implier, and the fact that he's had his coaching staff together, that it's as simple as taking one or two pieces out and plopping them in, and it's also a testament to the man, to be a fly in that dressing room at the beginning of the game, to hear what he had to say to those kids, like, who knows what he said, like, hey, play for your futures, this could be it, I'll buy you all cars, like, who knows what he said. But the fact that he got a result and tune out of that squad, I don't think their academy is any better than ours, and I don't think that there's anything different in that regards. I think it's just the fact that they're a decade ahead of us when it comes to infrastructure. So
extra hard Jurgen Klopp squeezes is probably what they promised him after the game if they got it done. Another question from me here for you is, do you feel like over this weekend, without us playing, Ange might have been working on some things? You have brought up that maybe certain managers showed him something or kind of helped him, realize the devastating nature of how teams can hurt you. Like, could he have been tweaking some things over this weekend? Like, do you think he's benefiting from this little break, or do you think he didn't need it?
I don't think tweaking is the right word, Jack. I think like continuing to implement his style. What did he use at the beginning of the season? Like his train analogy, where it's like, okay, the train's up the station, right? You get on it or you get off, and it's going to take us there. And if the longer you resist it, the longer it's going to get there, but it's eventually going to get there. I've been watching his training videos and some of the extras that are on Spurs Play there, as many of us have. And I'm watching the evolution of his training sessions. And like I did a bit of coaching here and then. I've had some good coaches in my life, and I play the game at a decent level. I still do. It's almost like teaching the basics, It's like you get a brand new crop of kids, and you got to teach them how to juggle the ball again. So it's like you look at the intro of his tactics and some of his passing play, and at first little bit was his passing movement, where he wants you to pass, where he wants you to take you the ball, et cetera, et cetera. Then you see some of his finishing drills now are different. Finishing under pressure, the immediate transition of once you win the ball back and how fast it moves up the pitch. So I don't think it'd be necessarily him tweaking anything. I think it would just be him adding more information to the layers that he already is creating. And hopefully by doing that, that unlocks some of those tricky defenses. Maybe it's like, hey, you hadn't had enough repetitions of doing A to B to get to C, and now they've unlocked A and B, you're going to get to C. And I just trust the man. He's won titles everywhere he's went, and he has a successful way of playing, and he sees the game differently from a lot of people. And when you do that, it takes time to teach, and we're 7 months in, so it's only about learning and taking
finer tuning, finer drilling into what he's already trying to develop here. I think that's right. Maybe not even tweaking, just finer drilling, finer tuning what he's been doing with this team already.
While having to work with players coming back from injury, while working with those players and like integrating people back into the squad, and getting players caught up like the Bentancur, right? He missed all that tactic. Like he missed.
Just quickly on that, players that have come back from injury. One of my last questions: who's been maybe missing the most since they've come back from injury? Like who's maybe not hit the ground running as much as we needed him to? Because I think all three, Bissouma, Maddison, Bentancur, like take your pick. They've all kind of underwhelmed of recent. Which one do we kind of need to step up straight away, like in the next game?
Yeah, you said it. Take your pick. Next game, like just because you said next game, it's gonna have to be Maddison. It's gonna have to be Maddison. I saw on the We Are Tottenham there, they compared him to the prime Christian Eriksen, and I look like which one's better, like the prime Maddison, the prime Christian Eriksen. I look back to what Christian Eriksen brought to us. That squad, like I don't think people realize, or maybe they do. I don't want to speak for anyone, but that squad that made the Champions League final, that 4-2-3-1 with everybody knew who played in what position. That 10 Eriksen was the pinnacle of how that position should have been played in the part of that world football at that time. Like Eriksen was so good that it was almost second nature. It was almost like having Kane. It's like we're spoiled for choice for having Kane and seeing years and years and years of clinical finishing. Now that we're seeing Richarlison, just, he's a good striker, but he's not the blessed finisher of Kane. And it's the same thing with Maddison. That 10 needs to be, pulling the strings. Think of how many times that Eriksen turned the ball on a half turn and just absolutely sliced through defenses like butter. When Maddison's on his day, he can dribble, he can turn, he can pass, and he can be a game changer. Maybe it's him just, getting some faith back in his ankle. Maybe it's maybe it's match fitness, but Maddison for me. I think
I'd agree with that.
We need Maddison back.
I think he's been. I mean, might sound a bit harsh. I think he's been slightly missing, since he's basically come back. We need him. We know he can be a lot better. We know he can make more impact. And also, somebody brought up, or might be Mia and Brad spoke about, kind of playing that decisive pass or having that shot on goal from distance. Those sort of things, we'd like to see Maddison do, I think, a bit more often in games. And the moment he gets more into the shape of things, more back into kind of feeling normal, feeling, regular, feeling back to his old self again, I think we'll see that. But Donovan, any final words, any final topics from yourself before I let you go?
Yeah, no, I didn't really have anything to say coming on. I just wanted to chat, but the only thing on my mind was the Will Lancashire.
Go ahead. He's on fire.
Yeah, no, I admire the guy. I saw him, a picture of him, and I was like, whoa, like big beefy arms. Look how he's been hitting the gym. I think Brian Hill needs to start buddying up and going to the gym with him, because he's doing something. And he's even doing the Harry Kane celebration after goal, so you can tell that he's taken a liking to the Kane and using it as inspiration. You can tell that he sees himself as Harry Kane. You can tell he can see himself as being that finisher. And I think Ali Gold came out with an interview, and he was saying how he's not the finished product yet, but when he's at the first team training sessions and everything with the team, he sees himself as a starter, and it's not enough for him, and he wants to be a starter, and he wants to go out there. And that's the right attitude we need to have. And with our U17s right up to our U22 is doing so well, flying high. You hope it's the way forward. Especially for Levy, because that's going to be what he wants. He wants an academy that'll pay for itself, and if anything, it'll save him in money in the transfer market. But last thing I'll say though is I strongly believe that's why players like Bergvall are coming in, right? And that Vuskovic, not just to potentially play for the first team, but maybe sneakily just bolster the academy, bring the next level of players forward. So, that caliber is that bar is constantly being raised. You think of Rico Lewis. What was he doing in 2019, 2020, 2021? You never even heard of the guy, but he was being developed in the City Academy, right? So, maybe have a couple of those hidden away, because 4 homegrown players right now? Skip. I'm not going to name them. I can't even name them. So.
Yeah, and it feels like for next, like you said, for next season, when you have to start physically having players that are from your academy, developed from your academy, to name for these European squads. I'd like to have maybe some better options to pick from than maybe an Oliver Skip. I'd be happier to lean on the Donleys and other players like that to pick from than a guy like Skip. So I agree with you there. Donovan, have a good rest of your week, sir. Hopefully get to see you before the match day, but big up to you, my man. Thanks for having a conversation with me. Thanks for keeping company.
Come on.
Alrighty. See ya. Big up to Donovan Osterreicher, everybody. Doing decently well in the fantasy league, from what I can tell. I've actually dropped plenty of points, which is a great segue to the next person who we're bringing in. Michael from Poland. I believe I saw from when last I checked, this guy has now officially surpassed Felix Baldwin Counter as number one in the fantasy league. So we're amongst royalty right now with Michael. But let's bring in our next guest. Big up to Donovan as well, everybody. Smash that like button, please. But what looks to be maybe our last two guests could be Michael and Sean. Tyler, I know I sent you the link, but if you want to come on and have your say, you're welcome to do so. But welcome to end on the last two here. If anybody else wants to come on and have their say, feel free to hit that link in the community section. Bring it on Michael now. Hey, what's up, league champ?
Big up. Honestly, I have a petition to make, right? Because I've seen plenty of teams in the league don't have Arsenal players. I do. I asked Dave if that's okay because I'm part of like a really competitive, like, my own mini league, right? So I kind of have to have like Arsenal players if I want to compete, right? So if the Flat Cap Army wants me to hand
got to fight dirty sometimes, Michael, in order to get to the top. That's what you had to do. You had to play a little dirty.
I shamefully admit I have Saka, Saliba, and Gabriel because in terms of like FPL, assets, they are unfortunately quite good, right? So
and Felix looked impossible to catch. He looked impossible to catch, and I was wiping my eyes just to see that you had actually done so, and also convincingly, I must add as well. Like you really put some extra points between yourself and him. So big up to you, my man.
That's the thing, right? I basically, I again shamefully will admit I kind of caught him because I have Arsenal players, right? I think the most massive game week where I caught him was where I had Saka do like 15 points or something, and and Saliba do like another 12 or something stupid like that, right? And Felix was playing, by the Hotspur rules of not having the scam in his team, and unfortunately, that got up. So I'm okay if the Flat Cap Army wants me to, head in the first place to Felix. I'm okay with it, right?
We'll review it. We'll review it at the end of the season and decide what to do with you. But the kind of theme of tonight, Michael, has been kind of further sort of question marks, maybe around Ange. Like what has he done to either, earn your trust this season? Do you have some question marks about him? That's been kind of on a lot of kind of the conversation tonight. There's also something that maybe if you wanted to get, whether you actually are interested in it or not is another thing. But Hugo Lloris had some quotes about, his time under Pochettino and how he felt like there was an opportunity to win something had they not moved to a new stadium. And maybe if they didn't, or if they did bring in some more players, that they could have won something. So where do you want to go? Do you want to go first with some of the Ange criticism and the divide in the fan base, or do you want to start someplace else?
I'm completely fine with going with the Ange stuff first, right? So basically, the way I see it is,
has he done enough to earn your trust so far? Basically, and that's something that we were talking about earlier. Like a better question to ask is, he's done things wrong, right? To maybe have pissed you off, or perhaps even pick certain players that he shouldn't have, or he's, at some stage this season, surely he could have done something wrong. But has he done enough right to convince you, to give you, to earn that trust from yourself for next season and beyond, basically?
Yeah, so for me, definitely he's been doing a stellar job so far, in my opinion. But that being said, I'm saying this because I had lower expectations at the beginning of the season, and even though we had a brilliant start, I didn't raise them. I always thought that even though we are doing quite well at the beginning, we are still a team that's basically suited for that, you know, 5th, 6th, 7th place. I was never in the camp of you know, going overboard with it and saying that we should be, you know, like 10th or relegated or whatever, right? So yeah, that's how I'm looking at it. And because I had that approach, I wasn't like faced with our, let's say, a bit of a stumble or however you want to call it, right? And yeah, I still have full trust in this manager. That being said, I am also not going to like berate someone for criticizing some of the choices that he's made. I don't think his tenure has been flawless so far, and I think that there are like quite a couple of matches where you can point a finger at him and say, "Listen, Ange, you should have done this or that. You should have maybe given this player a chance. Maybe you should have substituted someone at that time instead of that time," right? I'm all for criticism like that, right? But for me to be Ange out, it's a bit mad for me, right? Like for me, the simplest way to look at it is if you have like basic cognitive skills and you see the table of the Premier League, right? And you see the 3 teams at the top had their manager for 8 years, 7 years, and 5 years nearly, right? Arteta soon will be like, I think he's over 4 years now, right? So basically the most successful teams in the league are the ones who have their manager for the longest, right? So for me to want us to sack the manager is quite mad. Like, I want to give this guy a chance to build something. I don't mind this season if we don't win anything. I don't mind this season even. I don't mind if we don't make Champions League this season even, right? I think like the only reason I see, like the only reason for me to want Champions League is the belief that we will make good use of the money that we will get from it, right? Because the previous like summer transfer window gives me hope that if we were to qualify for Champions League this season, that we would use that money well, right? Because I really like the signings that we made in the summer. Not all of them, I think. Like maybe there is like 1 or 2 when you can kind of like, you know, pick your bones and, you know, I'm not really sure what we are doing in some places, right? But overall, I think the summer window has been successful. And the winter window, the January window, I am really happy with Radu. I'm actually quite sad that he's not getting more chances. But yeah, that's it, right? But coming back to Ange, right? I even said it when we were talking about such things under Conte, right? I didn't like his style of play. I was bored I was so bored watching the games, right? At some point, even it got a bit toxic to the point where I was like, I'm not really like, you know, interested in watching Tottenham at all, right? I wouldn't mind if I miss the game, right? But what I was always saying is that I'm not Conte out because I wanted like basically a manager. I'm not even going to pick a name, right? I wanted a manager to finish a full season at this club, right? Because the last person to do so was Pochettino, right? And he was the most like successful because there wasn't like literal, you know, quantifiable success, right? In terms of trophies, but successful in terms of like bringing us from here to here, right? Pochettino was the most successful at doing that, right? So for me, we need to go through it again. I think if we want to step up because we did like this under Pochettino, and then we did like this, right? So we need to go back up, right? And for me to do it, you need to have a manager who gets time and money to develop the squad, right? That's how I look at it. So yeah, that's it for me, right? So, sorry, Jack, I went on a tangent.
No, speaking of Pochettino, I mean, might as well then transition to that Hugo Lloris bit of business. He had some quotes of recent where he said that maybe during the time under Pochettino and when they were playing well, that the progression underneath him was too fast for the club at the time, and that they, at least according to Hugo, that maybe they needed 2 to 3 more players in order to guarantee actually winning something. And also moving to Wembley wasn't good for the timing of where they were in that project. He was kind of referencing that they were basically undefeated in the previous season at the White Hart Lane, and then moving to Wembley Stadium sort of hurt that momentum. And he brought up, right, that, you know, with the expenses of paying for and moving to a new stadium, they didn't at least have the money, according to Levy and according to Hugo, to bring in the 2 or 3 more players that they might have needed to actually win something. Do you agree with Hugo?
Yes. So I definitely agree with the fact that like 16-17 season was the strongest Tottenham in like a really long time. I've seen some people comparing this current Tottenham side to that one. That 16-17 side was something else, right? I think people need to watch highlights of those games again, right? Because the way we played under Pochettino in that season, like not without a reason, we were the best attack in terms of like goals scored. We had the best goals scored in the league. We had the least goals conceded, I think, in like top 5 leagues in Europe, right? I think ironically we had the least amount of losses that season also in the league, right? I think Chelsea lost one more than us, but they had far less draws. They won more, basically. Right. So, and listen, we lost the league, right? Let's not sugarcoat it. We lost the league, unfortunately, right? But I think from when you look at that team, 16-17, what we had was an absolutely stacked first 11, right? That first 11 was the peak, like Spurs, in the last 2 decades, I think, right? So to stifle the progress of that team by going to a new stadium, by building new stadium, by completely cutting off the financing of the team in terms of transfers. I think in that aspect, I agree with Hugo. I think if that team from 16-17 season was supported with depth and with maybe some, people to challenge the first 11, in that sense, I agree that I think if we didn't move to Wembley, we didn't, give all those funds to the stadium. Instead, we invested in the team. I think 17-18 season would have been absolutely like amazing, right? But it happened a different way, and I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing that the club did, right? I think we needed to move to a bigger stadium. White Hart Lane was really small, right? As much as I am not the one to like celebrate being the FFP Kings and all that, just and being the richest club in London and whatever, right? I want success on the pitch, but I think whether I don't want to like celebrate it, but I think it's important to have that financial stability and background, right? Because I think what we can do is completely move forward organically and linearly upwards, right? I think we have the base to just keep getting stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. So I think moving to the new stadium, building a new stadium, right? I think it was a good choice. I just think, but I also agree with Hugo that maybe the timing was a bit like, that team was good enough to win something. And I think all they needed is like 3 to 4 players, like Hugo said, to maybe be able to compete in the 17-18 season, but we couldn't do that because we moved to the stadium, right? So I think it's a bit of a double-edged sword. So I think it's a nice point and nice debate point, by the way, right? I think, like, yeah.
Could one just to fire back, could one say that he's making too many excuses? Like, you can't have it perfect, as well. Like, is there a bit of that going on too, where it's like
some of the quotes, like I didn't see the full interview. I just seen some quotes on Reddit, right? But from some of the things that I saw there, he was like saving his ass a bit. At least that felt for me like he knows that they failed in a sense, right? Like, let's be honest about it. Even though we maybe weren't capable of financially competing with some of the teams because of the new stadium, etc., right? Maybe this team wasn't good enough to win the Champions League or to win the league, but to win the FA Cup or the Carabao Cup, I think this team was good enough to do that, right? And I think, again, I agree with the point that maybe moving to the new stadium stifled the progress of the team, but I also think it's not like it's an ultimate excuse, and they are all forgiven for how things panned out, right? So as I said, it's really fun. It's really like interesting to look at that with the hindsight. We know what happened, right? We know how we can analyze things, and him putting like his perspective on it. I agree with some points. I disagree with others. Good interview, by the way.
Just because we only have a couple of minutes left here, Roy Park just thought I had a pretty good point here. So maybe if you have anything to say on it. Says Jack and Michael, if we lose to Palace, get ready for Ange out chance getting started. Just saying, we are getting started with the rebuild, but our fan base has no patience. Do you fear that could be the case, actually, Michael, that it is that serious, that we'd actually hear some pretty significant, kind of negativity, or just sort of, like that could happen, that there could be Ange out chance and that sort of thing, like after Palace game? Could that actually happen?
I don't want to be toxic towards some people, but I kid you not, like the only thing I'm thinking about is just swearing at people for being Ange out, right? And again, like I want to stress out, for me, it's not even about Ange. It's about just the fact that they are willing to sacrifice another manager just because we lost a couple of games. Not even a couple of games. We lost one game, right? I know the performances have not been good enough. Again, I want to repeat, I am all for criticizing some of the decision-making, some of the squads, substitutes, tactics, like I'm all for that, right? But people, like, I swear to God, some people have like cognitive skills of a fucking goldfish, right? They just look at something and forget it like 5 seconds later, and they just are so emotional and so like reactionary, right? It's absolutely mad for me that I'm hearing like from different channels that some people in the stadium are like starting to get annoyed with Ange and etc., right? Like, I'm sorry, but to those people who just want to have like fun and want an experience and want to be entertained, just go visit Cliffs of Dover and have a wank, right? That's basically how I look at it. If you want experience and fun, then go to that, right? Unfortunately, like building football clubs, building squads is sometimes a painful period, like painful thing to do, right? You need a bit of patience. Like I get it. Maybe it's easier for me to say because I'm 26, right? I only been supporting the team for 5 years right now, right? So maybe I have more patience than some people who've been supporting for like 30 years and they lived through the whole like 16-year period of no trophies. I get it that they may have like lower patience levels, right? But still, like. Jaco, like, sorry, I know you have to move on to this one last thing, right? I kid you not, I think if, like, we played 25 games, right? So split the season in 2, right? 12 games and 13 games, right? I think if you reverse that, I think if you had those last 13 games that we did, right? Like Wolves, Man United way, etc., if they happened at the beginning of the season, and then we had the period of those like first 10 games now, oh my God, you wouldn't hear the end of it. We are in a title race, we are winning the league, we are winning it all, we are the best team in the league, etc., right? So for me, again, like some people are just so fucking reactionary.
I agree with you there, actually. By starting so quickly, we didn't give ourselves any of that grace period, really. We pretty much just got rid of that grace period that most teams seem to be given. Yeah, that's a fair point, actually. I totally agree with that there, Michael. Crystal Palace prediction then. So I imagine that we're going to get the win. Hopefully we do.
Yeah, I think we will. I don't want. I watched the game, like Crystal Palace versus Burnley game. At least like good parts of it, right? I want to stress that Burnley had a man sent off quite early, and before that, Crystal Palace were like barely breaking through. So for me, even though they changed the formation and
hard game to really read,
I think they will be more defensively solid because now they will play 3 at the back, etc. Right? But I think offensively, if Olise and Eze aren't there, I kid you not, we should. Like I want to say that it just screams of a clean sheet for me. Please, I want a clean sheet finally after all those games, right? I think maybe we'll struggle to break through. And I think the game won't be like pretty. I don't think it will be a smashing or whatever. But I think we have enough quality to break through them finally. And I think if you do it early, if we like score in the first 10 minutes or something, then I think it can be like a high scoring game. But otherwise, I think the most like logical scoreline I can see is probably 2-0 in my opinion. I think we'll score 2-1, like at the beginning of the second half, and maybe second at the end of the second half. That's how I see it, right? I think they will be defensively solid and compact, but I kid you not, I don't see them like hurting us massively in the transition because they don't have the fast players, right? Mateta, Ayu, all those guys are quite slow, so it's not even that they have a lot of pace in the transition, right? So yeah, that's how I see it.
No, I'd love for us to just grab 3 points, and I agree with you that that red card kind of changed the game dramatically enough that it is hard to really get any sort of read out of that Crystal Palace team, and they really weren't that impressive, even with kind of the red card still kind of given to them. It took them a while to eventually get the goals into the net to give them that comfort or that breathing room. But Michael, appreciate you, sir. Thanks for keeping me company, and hopefully get to see you again before the game week. And hopefully you have a good week as well ahead of this weekend. Appreciate you, sir.
Always a pleasure, Jacko, and I will be there with the Buskovich scouting report. His team has put me through like 2 6-0 and 4-0 drubbings. So right now, to balance it out, I had to watch a 0-0 with like 4 shots on target from both teams, right? So I kid you not, like I was struggling not to fall asleep during that game. So yeah, but I will be there. You will hear about him, but he looks promising, by the way. So yeah.
Very good to hear. Very good to hear. Checking in on our talented itch, Michael is. And if you want to see a bit more of Michael, check out that video. Dave included him in his long report. Yeah. But Michael, appreciate you, sir. And I'll see you next time.
Appreciate it too, Jacob. Bye-bye.
All righty. See you, man. Have a good one. Come on, you Spurs. Big up to Michael, everybody. Please show that man some love in the comments. Please smash that like button for us if you haven't already. Mia, I apologize. Meant to get to this earlier. Really do appreciate you. 16 months of support. 16 months. I think you've been around a lot longer than that, but appreciate you for supporting us for as long as you have. Coming on the fan shows regularly. Coming on debate shows, pre-match build-ups, pre-records, all that sort of thing. We've leaned on you, have used you plenty of times, Mia, and you've really put out some great content with us. We appreciate you, and thank you for supporting the channel as well. She says, thanks again for having me on, everyone. Please smash that like button and sub to all the people with the channels of this lovely community. Come on, you Spurs. Coys. Big up to you, Mia. Really do appreciate you. Hopefully you're having a good rest of your evening. We also have the KPV coming in here with 22 months of service. Thank you, KPV, you absolute legend. He says, big up, guys. Hopefully you're good. Thank you, Liverpool, for beating Poch and Chelsea. I told everyone that Poch wasn't going to win a trophy with Chelsea. KPV, never doubted you for a second, my man, as I believe no one should, because you do know your stuff, sir. But I'm very relieved to have found out that Chelsea did not win. I wasn't even watching the game Sunday, KPV, but when someone did tell me that they didn't pull through, I was relieved, very relieved. Just felt like Chelsea had nothing to play for this season other than that game. And now that they didn't get over the line, they weren't able to grab the trophy. The rest of their season's over. It's just nothing to play for. Very nice to see for me, KPV. Appreciate your support, my man. And also, when it comes to a certain, by the way, because I know you wear your Real Madrid kits a lot, and Martin Knightsbridge had that super chat from earlier, KPV. Let me know if you would take a certain Luka Modric back on a free as a bit of a retirement journey or for us to come back. Pick up to you, KPV. Hopefully you're keeping well. But we are going to keep this rolling here, everybody. We have 3 guests left. We have Tyler, Sean, and then Adrian Brown, everybody. So I think we're going to keep it with those 3. Let's keep it rolling, though. Tyler, Big T, there you are, sir. Let's bring you in here. What's up, Tyler?
How you doing, Jack?
Doing all right, my man. Doing okay. What are your thoughts ahead of this week? I mean, we didn't get to play it all over this weekend, so the question I've been asking some people is maybe Ange was working on some things. Donovan Osterreicher didn't like it when I said maybe tweaking on some things, but what do you think he's been working on over this weekend, Ange Postecoglou? Has he benefited from the time off?
Yeah, I hope so, and I hope guys like Maddison are continuing to get fit and can get back to their usual self, because I think Maddison, since he's came back from injury, hasn't looked the same player at all. So I'm hoping for him to get back in form. I bet he's tweaking with the front line, trying to figure out what's best for the upcoming matches. Maybe bringing Son back to the middle, because that also, I think when Son was down the middle, we looked our best this season so far. So I would maybe like to see Son come back into the middle, but just because I think that allows Maddison, even because Maddison was going down that left quite a bit, and linking with Son pretty well when Son was down the middle. So I'd like to maybe see that again.
Would you move Richarlison to the bench then?
Um, it's just so hard because none of our wingers are like really playing. Like Son's our best winger and our best striker, so it's like it's really frustrating to I don't
Yeah,
know what.
and we can't make a photocopy of him, sadly,
Yeah,
and just have two of him on the pitch.
and I
So
think Solomon might even
mm,
be one of our better wingers in Ange's in this Ange system. So,
he's coming back from
assuming he
injury.
gets back.
Do you think he would use him straight away, Ange, or will he be more of a bit part player for the rest of the season? Solomon, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't see him coming straight back into the team starting, but if he performs off the bench, I could see him getting back into the starting 11. I mean, none of our wingers are really, performing, so it's not like it's impossible for someone to break in right now.
Yeah, that's where I'm kind of at though, with why it would be a bit hard for me to drop Richarlison though,
Yeah,
because
I know.
Sonny and him have been easily the best in that forward line. So to move one to a different position just to look at something different, perhaps, but these guys have been the highest performing players this season, and Son's still produced plenty of goals and assists on the left, and Richarlison's grabbed the majority of his goals through the middle. He's picked up, I think, some assists, right, when he played out on the left, but these are the two best guys in the team, and it feels like a lot of people do want to drop Richarlison to the bench.
Yeah, I don't. It's not as much as wanting to drop Richarlison because look, I mean, Richarlison's a decent striker. Obviously on the ball he has some limitations, but it's more of trying to get Maddison back to top form. And I think when Son was down the middle, him and Maddison were linking up really well, and Maddison was coming on the left, getting that ball, those little low crosses to Son, that Son was taking advantage of and putting him in the back of the net. So I'd like to see that again.
Yeah. I, personally, for me, it's kind of a bit of a don't fix what ain't broke. I
Yeah,
think Spurs' record has been, if I'm not mistaken, better with us playing with Richarlison down the middle and Sonny on the left. We've actually lost more games with Sonny down the middle than with Richarlison down the middle, despite also Richarlison playing more games down the middle than what Sonny has. So I also
yeah,
say that the narrative that we're automatically better with Sonny down the middle, I'm not sure if that's totally the case. And also with what we have to work with, I think those two are kind of the most reliable for us this season. So whatever combination we can make that gets the best out of both of them at the same time, not just one of them, but both of them, is I think
yeah.
what we should be going for.
No, I feel you 100%. I mean, Richie hasn't been bad at all. That's not what I'm. It's
Mm.
also because I feel like no one can really cross the ball and get it to Richie. Like we just don't have our wingers aren't good at crossing the ball. I don't know why, but that's part of the reason as well. If we're not going to get these crosses into the box for Richie to attack, then what's the point of having him as the striker if he's not going to get the service? At least Son can somewhat create for himself, I feel like, down the middle more than what Richie could.
I think we just need to look into clone making machines and just find a way to
Yeah.
make a copy of Sun so that we no longer have to deal with this problem. 13 games to go, though, Tyler. What's your feeling / hope around top four? Is it already gone, or do you still have a lingering hope that Spurs can still get in there?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's still a pretty good possibility. I mean, that was a great result for us with Fulham beating United, so
Yeah,
that
true.
definitely is going to help us out. Obviously, Villa, looked pretty strong and scored a bunch of goals again. But who do they play? Bournemouth, right? Was it Bournemouth?
Um, who'd they play most recently? Forest.
Forest, yeah. So I mean, it wasn't like they beat a good team. So let's hope their form can drop off some more, especially with them being still in Europe. But we really just got to focus on ourselves, focus on trying to keep some clean sheets and, stop conceding stupid goals like the set piece goals. I mean, we got to cut that out. If we can do that, I think top four is pretty easily attainable right now, I think. We just have to cut out the bullshit goals that we concede.
it's more the goals that we're conceding for you that's what's hurting us of recent, like the one versus Wolves. And is it kind of more individual kind of errors then and more individual mistakes that are coming with these goals conceded? It's not much of the system, do you think?
I mean, like,
is it down to the system? Is it down to the individuals for why kind of we're conceding some of these goals?
Like the set piece goals, I mean, that comes down to, not marking the players that need to be marked, leaving guys wide open in the middle of the box to attack the crosses, the zonal system that we have. I think we need to switch that up. So, I mean, in that case, it's sort of a system, error, but we just don't have that big, strong aerial players to get the ball out of there as well. Like guys like Kane was our best like set piece defender, so losing him and another guy like Lucas Moore might be a tiny guy, but he helped on the defensive set pieces and
Yeah,
attacking set
fair.
pieces. He got up and won those headers. And not having a couple of those guys that were good at defending set pieces is definitely, hurting us. That's why, like last game, I said it would have been nice to have Dragson start that game instead of like a Ben Davies, just to have another guy in there aerially to help defend the crosses and set pieces. But moving past that now, Palace got their win. Obviously, you're talking about the red card. Obviously, that helped them out a lot, even though they have the new manager bounce or whatever. We should be beating Palace regardless, especially with no
Yeah.
Elise and Eze. I mean, they should not be able to create any goal scoring opportunities against us. We just got to stop the set pieces. If we can do that, I don't see why we can't, hold a clean sheet. Hopefully.
I think there's a chance that Eze could be back, might be back for the game against Spurs. Do you still feel like Spurs should still make relatively easy work of this Palace team, or should? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have the better players. I think. Yeah, I guess you can't really say we have the better manager or not because we don't really. I don't know much about the new manager they got, so I'm not going to talk crap about him. I don't know, but I have full trust in Ange. I I think people are definitely overreacting. Obviously, it's
Yeah,
fine to
is
criticize.
your faith in Ange wavering? And what do you make of the fact that a lot of people's faith seems to be wavering at this period?
Yeah, I mean, it's fine to criticize a manager. The fans always have a right to do that. But no one should be Ange out right now. I mean, it almost sucks that we had that amazing start to the season because everyone's expectations, including my own, just like got completely unrealistic all of a sudden. I never
Yeah.
thought we were title contenders, but I thought top four was definitely going to be a lock after that start to the season. Obviously the injuries didn't help at all, so um, that definitely hurt us. And
You agree with Michael from earlier that we started almost too well? We
yeah,
took away that grace period from ourselves where then we started judging ourselves by different standards, different expectations because of how well we started in the beginning.
yeah, 100%. I mean, we we had we had some performances that completely shocked me. I didn't think we were going to be that good to start out. But ever since that Chelsea game with the red card and all those injuries, like we haven't really had, other than the Newcastle game, really haven't had like a really good performance. So we just have to try to get back into gear. And just got to get the players going.
Hmm.
I think we still have a lot of work to do. Getting rid of players like Højbjerg, Skip, Davies. Clearing the rest of the, more average players out and, building more depth. I think we could definitely use some of the youth players. Like I don't see how Donley can't get more of an opportunity when Brennan Johnson's going out there every week and doesn't never impresses me really. So I think we have a lot of skillful players in the under 21 right now that could maybe see some more minutes hopefully if guys like Johnson continued and Werner continue to have poor performances. I can't see why you can't give them some more opportunities maybe. But I've always been like that. I always want to use the youth players. I'm one of those guys that likes to trust because you just don't know how good they are or how good they can be if you don't give them the opportunity. And
Hmm.
5 minutes at the end of a match isn't going to do anything really. to help that. That's really all they've gotten. So I'd like to see some more opportunity to them, like last season. I think if we had stopped using Skip and Dyer, I think if we had brought in some of the youth players, that we could have probably saved our season last year and could have easily gotten Europe.
So
So
you'd say that there were chances this season for Ange to have given more minutes to Donnelly or whatever other talented academy player. You think there were
yeah,
opportunities that he
I mean
passed on?
Dyer should have never touched the pitch this season. I don't know why he didn't. Seeing Phillips in the championship, obviously he's not like this incredible center back, but
Hmm.
he was more than good enough to get the opportunities that Dyer got this season. I know Dyer
Hmm.
didn't play that much, but he should have never even touched the pitch.
Hmm.
So I definitely think
I'd agree
there's
with
been
you.
opportunities for youth players that should have probably played this season, but if Ange doesn't think they're ready, then so be it. You can't really question that too much. He's the one that sees them training with the first team, so it's hard to criticize that.
And then lastly, I'm not sure if you heard Mia from earlier, but she was pointing out that Spurs already have such a young and inexperienced team that to chuck in even more young and inexperienced players would be a bit overkill, I think, in her eyes. Like he's already leaning on so many young players as it is that we have to consider that.
No, I completely disagree because guys like Udogi were already playing for Udinese. Sarr had played for Metz. VDV was already a proven center back in the Bundesliga for
Mm,
Wolfsburg. So no, we're not. I don't think we're too heavily relying on youth players right now because all those guys had plenty of experience and
mm,
they got their experience at their other clubs because they worked hard and they proved that they could do it against the professionals and the men. They might
sure,
be boys technically, but they were already men at that age and they're already
sure.
performing. So I'd like to see more guys get that opportunity, honestly.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would agree with you there in the chat there, Tyler. But appreciate you, sir. Thanks for coming on, having your say. Looks like you're headed out to the gym after this one. So wish you a good session and a good rest of your week. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for keeping me company.
Yeah, much appreciated. Thanks for having me on, Jack. And come on, you Spurs. Let's get this result against Palace and continue up the table. And also, shout out Jared Bowen for the brace for my FBL team, helping me get ahead of Jack.
That's
helping me
right.
get
I was
ahead of
gonna say,
Jack this
I
week.
totally
So,
forgot to mention that. You passed me.
yep.
It's not been good. Not been good, Tyler. You actually did it, to be fair, because I didn't even I think at one stage I might even said that it's not happening because that's how confident I was. But I am a slipping at the moment. I am a slipping down that table. So wish you luck. Maybe you can take my spot amongst the trash talking of Americans inside the top 10, because I wonder how many even Americans are inside that top 10 of the fantasy league. So you're
Yeah, I don't know.
representing us, Tyler.
I, I
Appreciate you,
def
sir.
I definitely messed up with that Holland triple captain. He didn't do anything. That was a
Yeah,
complete waste. So I thought for sure I was gonna be screwed after that. I didn't think I was gonna be able to catch you that easily, but you had a
comeback is
big
always
dip.
on. Comeback is always on, and the triple captain is a hard one to nail down. It never really works
Yeah.
out, I imagine, for everybody. So it's a hard one to do. But Tyler, good one, my man. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for having your say. See you
Have a
next
good
time.
one. And thanks,
All right.
Sean, for having me skip forward. I appreciate it, man. And
All right.
I will listen to you at the gym, and I'm hoping for a good chat from you. So big up, Shawnee.
Pressure's on, Shawnee. Alrighty, Tyler. See you, sir. Have a good one.
Later.
Big up to Tyler, everybody. Show him some love in the comments. Love chatting that guy. Really, really good guy as well. And has taken my spot in that fantasy league. So anybody else who feels like passing me, now's the chance to do so, because my team is slipping down that table. We're going to keep it moving, though, everybody. 2 guests left. We have Sean and Adrian Brown. I believe Adrian Brown is one up next. And then we're going to wrap things up with Shawnee Maddox. But let's head on over to Adrian, see what he has to say ahead of this week. What's up, Adrian?
Hello. You all right? Big
Yeah,
up,
I'm all
all.
right. How you feeling?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. We've got the next game is, I believe it's Crystal Palace is our next game, isn't it?
Yes, and
Yes.
everyone, but more seems to be on people's mind is actually, the post trauma or drama of the Sunday final, where everybody's a bit relieved that Chelsea didn't win. I think because that would not
Oh,
have
for
been nice
sure.
for us. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, that was the icing. I mean, it was apparently it went all the way through. It's the extra time, and when I heard that, obviously, secretly I think I wanted Liverpool to win, so we could just sort of trash talk Chelsea if we could. I still got to go into work tomorrow, see all my Chelsea colleagues, and give them a little bit of banter back to them. So
you don't have to worry about walking in with your head low, or you don't have to avoid eye contact now. Yeah, you
I
can
got
walk
no
in
criticism.
Chest out.
But,
A big talking point. A big talking point that was taken from that game, though, was the fact that Jurgen had used so many kids, and used so many academy players, and now that has been kind of used against Ange, from what I can tell on Twitter. They're feeling like Ange could have maybe used the youngsters more times than he has this season, and they look at a guy like Jurgen Klopp as a prime example of somebody who does put a lot of faith in the younger players. Do you think it's a valid criticism of Ange, or do you think it's not as simply said?
I can see where people are coming from with Jurgen Klopp, and obviously they've got a good academy up in Liverpool, and we've got a good academy here in Tottenham. I mean, when I'm comparing it to other seasons, I think youngsters have had a little bit more time, having tryouts, give them a chance, give them a go. But it's like with all managers' decisions, it's up to the manager to decide who's going to come on and who's going to come off. And if he's the one's watching them every week, we can only say it in the background. But I would like to see more youngsters come into play a little bit more. It's they're coming through. I'm sure they are. There's a good load of talent pool out there, I'm pretty sure, and he'll give them their go. I think at the moment his concentration is to try and make a good squad, good first team squad, reduced injuries, as much as possible. I mean, we're getting there now. How many injuries have we got now? I think it's only a couple now, 3 or 4.
Yeah, and players are coming back more than they're leaving at the moment, right? Players are they're not dropping like flies like they used to.
Precisely, and I think if the fatigue sets in again, depending where we are, I'm sure he will give these youngsters a bit more chance. So I'm pretty confident of that. He will get them near the end of the season if we're in a very good place and that.
More of a next season type of thing to perhaps criticize him on, or not criticize him on his use of the younger players, because there'd be more games, ideally more competitions to spread out kind of the talent and the players.
Well, this is it. I mean, he would have now time to settle within this team and the squad. I mean, it's very difficult to come into a team at the very beginning of the season to plan out the whole of, you need first you're trying to get your feet around the ground. Now he's settled into that position now. He needs to, he'll figure that out. He'll feel confident. I mean, give the bloke a chance. It's like any newbie that comes into any workplace, it's very easy to criticize them because they're not doing the job well, but they've only just started. So, and I'm feeling very confident, he'll stay for us for a long time. All this chat about him leaving and everything else like that, that's not Ange's style. Ange's style loves that challenge. And I'm pretty sure he'll take the criticism on board with the youngsters as well. So I think, give it to the next season before we start, putting our claws into him. I'm sure he will produce these superstars up, and we have got them. And I think and don't forget, we've got a lot of them out on loan at the moment. Got Felice out there; he's doing right. Okay, Sevilla. And all the other youngsters out there who are down in Portsmouth, Phillips, and all that. So they're getting game time, and you need the more experience getting game time in there. That's good for us, and it's not going to be so risky at the moment. I'm sure he's concentrating on that squad, the first team squad, the regulars, and the ones he can sort of put in there. Eventually, the youngsters will come through, and they'll get their time for sure.
Yeah. Do you agree with what Mia had to say earlier? She kind of offered kind of a counter to some of the criticism about his lack of playing some of the youngsters, that the squad itself and the first team itself already is so young and already does have, so many young, but technically relatively inexperienced kind of talents, that to then throw even more younger players into the mix and into the team be a bit on the overkill kind of side, or just not even necessary, maybe is the right word. Like, it's not something that you would need to do because you already have so many young players as is.
Yeah, I mean, the way that Ange plays the team is very athletic. He needs a young squad.
Yeah.
And yeah, I totally agree with that. But there's also, and he'll figure out. It's putting people in, try it out. It's trial and error at the end of the day, isn't it? Sometimes, and he hasn't done. Really, to be honest with you, he hasn't done much errors in respect to, I mean. He's done pretty well, considering, especially at this part of the season. We always do badly around this time of the season. But, I think he's got it on track. And like I say, we're always going to have a young squad. He pushes up because that's what we need. We need fast, fresh legs, straight up there, attacking football, making sure that we're always on the attack. So, yeah, we've got to get used to that now. And I think really these youngsters will have their time. They've just got to be patient. He just wants to make sure they've got the game time and that they've got the fitness in there.
Over this break and over this weekend, do you think Ange might have been working on anything, perhaps looking at something a bit differently in the system, or even do you think even this break at all helps him, or does it hinder him? What do you think about that? Because perhaps he just probably wanted to play another game straight away to right the wrong of the Wolves game, but no, he has to wait 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. It's always funny when you don't have a game and everybody else is playing, isn't it? You don't know if it's a good thing or if it's a bad thing. Are you frightened they rest on their morals a little bit, or had a bit too much relaxation through that period of time? Having something to do at that time keeps you on your toes, I think. So yeah, it really is one of those.
Yeah.
You just don't know where it is until they play the next game, and then we can criticise them what they've been doing. Yeah, I can't see. Yeah, I can't see him changing the squad too much at the moment. To be honest with you, to be fair, but I suppose at the moment there is a little bit of disorganisation at the front. I think at the moment when I see them play, we shouldn't criticise. I know there's a lot of people that criticise Vienna a little bit too much. I think he's doing an okay job. I mean, he's done a lot of assists. Okay, it's not all about goals. Sometimes it's being there at the right time to pass them, situations on. He's got to prove himself because I believe he wants to be in his national team. So he's going to want to prove himself. And I think sometimes some of the criticism towards him is a little bit unfair. But I think, he's doing okay. Could do a little bit more, but like we all have to do a little bit more when we in that situation. So
do you think the criticism, because in Werner's case, I'm not sure if we're as particularly harsh towards him, but Dave and I, we're not the nicest, I'll be honest, towards Brennan Johnson after games. Do you think the criticism towards him could also be maybe a bit less over? What do you think it's slightly different to the Werner? They're in two different boats, or do you think it's a bit similar?
Werner's got the experience, has he? So he can carry this quite easily. He's got broad shoulders, I reckon. We've got to be careful with Johnson. I think he could be, that could sometimes us criticise him could affect him in the long term. If he, depends on what he does. He's a professional. He should be able to take it, but he is still a youngster. But you still see him try, and you've got to understand again. We even though we've got a young squad, we've got to remember that they are young. Sometimes they just need that guidance and the target, and we need to support them at the end of the day. Like you support your own children. So we've got to remember that they might be old enough, but they're still kids at the end of the day, in my eyes. So, we need to, give them all the support, encourage them. Yes, it's very frustrating when you every time you see Johnson going to kick that goal and it's right over that wrong end of that part, post or bar at the top. But he did a lovely shot the other week, though, didn't he? Wasn't that great?
Yeah,
I think it was the ending of the match, wasn't it? That
he's
last minute.
He's the last minute winner kid. He's grabbed more last minute winners than anybody this season.
Precisely, he'll come up with the goods when it needs to be coming up. Let's not be too harsh on the guy.
Okay. And what you're about to say? Sorry.
No. I was just saying. He'll focus well.
Okay. And ahead of this weekend, though, like somebody has brought up that it's a must win for Spurs. A bit of the tension kind of in the fan base about whether they actually have faith in Ange. Like, how much has your expectations changed? Like, it's sort of funny. Like, Spurs fans, they really seem to be taking this top four very seriously. And I think, Ange in kind of the recent form, us slipping up a little bit seems to coincide with some of the pressure that's been on him. Do you see Spurs as a realistic top four contender? Do you think we can finish in there, or do you see us more finishing 5th, 6th, 7th kind of range?
I mean, what a question, Jack. The last time you had me on this show, I was still hoping for a Championship League win. Now I concede that. I'm telling you all now, I concede that. All right. But I'm pretty sure that we will get, I'm 99.9% we'll get within the top four. I've still got my optimism there. I think we'll fight. I think we'll fight with Aston Villa and Arsenal for where we're going to be. So and we'll kick their butts, get into them at least at one of those, either 3rd or 4th. I mean, it looks
just got to find out who's pretending. It feels like that's the case. Like so many teams that are pretending to be in the top four. We just got to figure out which one can actually take a claim.
Well, yeah, and we won't know that until another few more games down the road. And if we're talking about Ange and the expectation of him, again, he's just started with this club. Please do not attack him. He's done, in my opinion, maybe not in everybody's, but I'm sure for the majority of Tottenham supporters, he's done an absolutely marvellous job where he is at the moment. And, and may it long continue. So I know there's going to be people who are going to, let's say, criticise if we did lose against Crystal Palace. But I think they're just going to be stupid for saying it, to be honest with you. And you can't teach stupidity.
It's earned. Maybe last but not least, maybe last one to end off for me, unless you had something else. Hugo Lloris had some quotes. Did you catch those at all about kind of the time under Pochettino? Sort of like they could have. He had to. I'll summarize it quickly. He said that during the time under Pochettino, perhaps their progression was too fast for the football club, and that they actually needed 2 to 3 more players in order to guarantee winning something, but the club couldn't have done that at the time because of their transition into a new stadium. And then he furthered up by saying that moving to Wembley wasn't actually good for the timing of the Pochettino project, because the previous season to moving to Wembley, they were undefeated at White Hart Lane. Felt like something was really brewing special there. Do you agree with Lloris that maybe the timing of the moving to the new stadium, all of the pressure around the budget that Levy had for the transfers kind of hindered that project under Pochettino, and perhaps actually was the reason why they didn't end up winning anything?
Yeah, I think I totally agree with Lloris in that aspect. I mean, he was there. he was in the, seeing everything happen. So I'd rather trust his information than I would trust, anybody else's, because he's close to that information. And for sure, I mean, it was a very hectic couple of years for us, especially with the stadium, the new stadium being built, and the disruptions and going to Wembley, and it was a very difficult and stressful time. So I can totally appreciate with Luis's comment on with Poch at the time managing. We should have gave a little bit. We all know, but we can't change the past now that it's done now. And obviously he went to Chelsea, to go back down to that club, and I'm glad he's failed greatly at Chelsea at the moment, because it just helps us in the long run. But I do wish Poch all the best and everything. Don't get me wrong, but that's life, isn't it? You have your ups, you have your downs, and you just don't know what's around that corner. I mean, I'm going to go a little bit off tangent here. I'm going to talk about, obviously, I feel sorry for Kane at the moment. He's gone over there expecting to win his trophies, and it's not working out for him. But he's doing bloody marvelously as a, with, I think, is it 29? Could be 30 goals now out what he's been doing out there.
He's supposed to be around the same stage that Lewandowski was in that record-breaking season.
That's right.
Yeah, he's doing pretty much the best he really can in terms of being in front of the goal. That's for sure. Yeah.
Well, I'm hoping all the best, that he will break it, because I think he'll get very demoralised now if obviously he can't, because obviously the whole reason he went out there was for that trophy. So he needs something to perk him up. And as always, we'll always keep an eye out on the career for him. And he's always welcome back here at Tottenham Club Spurs. Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs. Great call, Adrian. Thanks for having a chat with me, sir.
No probs.
Appreciate you for keeping me company. I hope you have a
That's
good rest of your week.
No probs. Will do. And big up all. I hope everybody has a good week as well. All right. Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs. Big up, Adrian. Have a good one, my man. See ya.
Will do. All the best now.
See ya. Big up to Adrian Brown, everybody. Show him some love in those comments, please, everybody in that live chat. Waited very patiently as well. Had a nice chat with him. Very good guy, very nice guy. And so please, everybody, show him some love in the chat. We're going to wrap things up, though, with a closer here with Shaie Maddox here. And everybody, if you're still listening along to us at this stage, really do appreciate you. Really do thank you guys for tuning in, watching these fan shows, and participating in whatever way you guys are. Even if you're a silent listener listening in the background, do appreciate you guys. But we're going to end off with the last and final guest here, Shaie Maddox, see what he has to say. Hey, Shaie.
How's it going, Jack? No, I'm just glad I was able to fit this into my schedule. I was stuck in a very, very long meeting from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Ooh. Was there a time for lunch in between?
Off and on. Essentially, I work for the government. We were working on some settlement negotiations. So we reached a settlement, but lawyers keep talking even when you've agreed on stuff.
Yeah. And they're not talking about Ange or, player problems with Spurs or anything like that, real
They're just, you can't get them to stop talking at a certain point. And you're just like, we hit an agreement, stop talking. But again, I was very glad to be able to kind of listen to this a little bit in the background on break. And Laboratory IPA.
There you go, sir. You're getting through the day. That's what it is. Getting through the meetings, getting through the day. Post-meeting IPA. Probably will be a name for that at some stage, I imagine, for a craft beer. Post-meeting West Coast IPA of some kind, I imagine. But where do you want to go, Sean? Kind of the theme of today has been around kind of the wavering faith in Ange Postecoglou, some of the things that he could be working on or tweaking, things like that. Where do you want to start with kind of Ange? And maybe the question I've asked that probably is the better question to ask, has he done enough already this season for you to earn your trust? and basically give you undivided, sort of trust and attention. Like, has he done enough for you already this season?
Yeah, no, again, I think my kind of expectation was, or a kind of requirement, I think, was that we need to be in a position to finish in a European football spot, preferably at least Europa League. And I think looking at the numbers, I think Hoddle was doing some back of the envelope calculations. We're pretty close to securing sixth place.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think that getting into Europe then gives us a chance to spend a bit more and just have more games to develop the rest of the squad. So again, and I don't think that anyone was putting us at top 4 at the beginning of the season. So why we have suddenly shifted so far, it seems a little irrational.
Yeah,
we're football fans. We're not rational people. But again, I think looking back at what I wanted out of the season, again, if we finish in 5th or 6th and end up in either the Champions League, depending on how many spots they give us, or even the Europa League, I think it's a successful season.
Sorry, from earlier, talking ball with the super chat saying shameless self plug. We're 53 subs from 1,000. Appreciate you, talking ball. Everybody head on over there, get them over 1,000. Unfortunately, not even enough really in the house at the moment to even get you all the people that you need to get over 1,000. So I'll try to save this one for another stream of some kind. Well, we might have some more people in here, Colin. But big up to you, sir. Appreciate your support, and let's get you over 1,000 indeed. And sort of like where we are, though, with Ange at this stage, do you feel like what Michael brought up earlier is something that hasn't been said enough, that he started off so strong that he pretty much got rid of that grace period that most managers and people are kind of allowed and given? Like, he started off so well that everybody just sort of thought, well, he should just continue. He should just be winning every game for the rest of the season. And now that he's dipped a little bit, people aren't giving him that time or that patience if maybe he had lost those games in the beginning of the season instead.
Yeah, no, again, I think he reset a lot of people's expectations after that 10-game run. And again, it was exciting and fun to watch. But again, we also forget how decimated that squad was after that Chelsea game and how many points we dropped in that period while we were really trying to get everything back on track. So again, I think he's been doing well given how big the problems were. And again, I think a lot of it is about trying to regain a bit of momentum and kind of that rhythm that we fell out of. And again, I think part of that comes down to just getting that midfield functioning 100%. I've been very adamant about getting that right DM in. But again, I think a midfield just has not been at that level since Bissouma has just not been the same player. So I think a lot of it comes down to getting that. But also, again, our players have not really played that together because they've all been injured and out. So it's hard for them to get that rhythm. Again, when Son and Kane were at their best goal-scoring numbers, it's because they already knew what the other one was going to do, so they could send that ball first time or no look because they knew the other guy was going to make that run.
Yeah.
Our guys have not played together long enough to develop that understanding. And again, I think that'll be what we need to work toward in this upcoming season, is getting everyone on the same page, knowing kind of, okay, well, if I'm playing with Brennan, then this is the ball I need to send, etc. Because we got a lot of new faces. The squad has been almost entirely turned over in the last 2 years. So it takes time to get those players.
Is that what they're working on right now over this weekend? Just finer tuning everything, but also just getting even more familiar with each other, with the system, and understanding the system and the tactics even further? Is that what they're probably even doing right now as we speak over this weekend and over this break?
Well, hopefully that and some defensive set piece training.
That too. Yeah, some raising of hands of who wants to go win a header. That'd be fun.
But
Let's play that
again,
game.
a lot of it feels like they're out of sync. Again, I feel like a lot of times we're seeing either a player making the run or not making the run, or kind of the forward makes the run and the midfielder doesn't realize he's making the run and didn't play it, doesn't play him in. I mean, we saw some frustration there. And I think a lot of that is kind of the growing pains of them realizing, oh, so-and-so is going to make this run. I need to play this ball to this spot. Again, I think that as you start to iron those out, it looks a lot cleaner. Again, we've had so many kind of chops and changes. It's been hard to get any consistency in the team.
And consistency will be necessary in order to get to top 4. Sean, do you have hope that Spurs are going to finish in the top 4? Or you think we're going to be more of a Europa League kind of spot this season? Where do you think Spurs are going to finish?
I mean, I think my happy clapping self always thinks we're in with a shout. I think it'll come down to this Aston Villa game. I think if we beat Villa, we can throw off a bit of their momentum. But currently, I mean, Villa is essentially playing like the team we want to be playing, where they're going out, they're battering teams, scoring 4 goals every game. And that's what we were expecting to kind of continue under Ange ball. So, again, until we can start going out and battering teams, it's hard to see us keeping up.
I'd agree with that with Villa, that of recent, they played more like how we maybe, or at least in even the results, like how we kind of have wanted it to be, where we batter teams, destroy them, and then maybe in the odd game don't really show up or just don't have our best day at the office. And I'd say Villa have been a funny team where they played really well, like in a lot of games, but also in others have weirdly just not shown up and have really surprised me for being kind of exposed and exploited really by whatever tactics they try to have with the high line. And you could say similar things with Spurs, but Villa at the end of the day have gotten more, I'd say, convincing wins this season than maybe Spurs have gotten, unless I'm wrong, and maybe I'm
again. I've been watching them play their last few games, and again, what I've noticed is they start to score early, and they pile up that pressure, and they're kind of getting to the point they can put games to bed, and that's what we have not been able to do this season, is to run up that score and just end that game. Again, I think Hoddle says that they have lost a few in a row, which I think is accurate in terms of that. But again, it's really, they're at a point where a lot of games they're scoring 4 goals and they're putting the game to bed. And that's what we have not yet done under Ange. I feel like, again, a lot of those games, first half, getting a lot of early pressure, creating a lot of chances, and it's about ending that game before the other team gets that second wind. So, again, I think as we get better offensively, we'll be able to kind of capitalize, especially on I feel like we come out really strong in most games, that 15 to 20-minute period, but we haven't been doing enough in that in terms of converting those into chances and goals.
I think we've been also missing some of the guys that have come back from injury. They just haven't hit the ground running in the way that we probably would have needed them to or would have liked them to. I'd say Bissouma falls in that category. Bentancur falls in that category. Maddison falls in that category. Which one of them do you think we kind of need ahead of this weekend to really switch it on and kind of get back to their best selves? Because would you agree with me that part of the reason why we've been struggling is also because they've been missing? And you even said, right, the midfield is not playing in the same way that they could. And probably because of players like Maddison, right, and Bissouma and whatnot, not performing to their best.
Again, I think Maddison is probably the biggest miss there. Again, we've struggled a little bit with those compact teams to really break them down. And again, that's where Maddison was better before the injury, was he was able to push up and create a threat, either ripping long shots or that. But again, it's creating that additional pressure going forward offensively. But I also think that essentially Bissouma not being at that same level is hurting us a lot, because we're not kind of breaking up counterattacks in that midfield. Because essentially, if we're pushed up forward, then someone needs to take a foul, do something to stop that counterattack if they can beat the press. And that's what we're not doing. Again, sometimes we'll be fortunate and VDV will have enough pace to get that ball if it's played too long. But ultimately, what we need to do is stop them before they can play that ball. And I think that comes down to being more dominant in that midfield at those transition points in the game.
And Spurs not, like you say, stopping some of those counterattacks by winning it back quickly enough, giving them too many chances to try to build out and hurt us on the counter. We need to be more ruthless and dominating them in their half and retaining possession straight away.
Well, yeah, but again, I think a lot of it comes down to that moment when you do give up possession because, again, if you're pushed forward, that will happen. But again, I think what you see in City is they're much better at stopping that counterattack before it happens. Like, you're going to concede some, but again, I trust Vicario, I trust VDV to stop a bunch of those, but we're not doing enough to prevent that break. Because again, usually what happens is the defense wins it, they push straight into midfield, and then with a pass or two, they're onto their wing, kind of attacking that space left by our fullbacks. And we need to stop the ball before essentially they can play their winger in.
And King Hoddle saying City, do a much better job of tactically fouling. The midfielders could definitely help out in that department. King Hoddle for us, it'd be probably more their job or their responsibility in terms of the tactical fouling and stopping some of these moves and some of these runs for sure. Maybe a last question for me here, Sean, because I know you definitely would want to have your say on this. Something that I've had a conversation with me about, Dermot about, others with, is after that game against Chelsea with Liverpool, Jurgen, of course, used a lot of youngsters. Is that something Ange could take a page out of, something you'd like to see him do more of? Were there opportunities for him this season to have used youngsters when he didn't? How do you feel about that? And kind of the conversation around the youngsters that Jurgen Klopp used that maybe Ange Postecoglou hasn't?
Yeah, I think it's a complicated thing. Mia made a point about we have a lot of young players already in the squad playing, which I think is partially true. But again, I don't think we're taking advantage of kind of the opportunities when we can bring a young player on. We wasted way too many games giving Dyer an opportunity. When Skip wasn't performing, he kept playing.
Yeah.
Despite having very average or below average performances when Donnelly was sitting on the bench. And again, when we had so many injuries, there was a lot less to risk during those periods because it was kind of like, okay, well, if we don't have any starters available, the drop off between those youngsters and fringe kind of squad players is much lower. So that's the perfect time where we could have been experimenting more. But again, I feel like even when there were times when we were up by a few goals, it hasn't been as much lately. We weren't subbing in some of those youngsters off the bench. I mean, some of those early games were great chances where we could have tried giving Phillips 10 minutes at the end of games in occasion. So I think there were chances to be more proactive.
Yeah.
From Ange. Again, I ultimately, like a point everyone has made is he sees them week in and week out. So he ultimately knows if he thinks they're up for it. But again, I think the fact that we've seen Donnelly come on a few times, we've seen a few of the youngsters given a chance, kind of makes me a bit questioning of if the essentially older players aren't performing, why aren't we giving them at least a look?
Right.
Again, I think there's been the frustration with Brennan Johnson's work rate off the ball, and sometimes Skip running around with like a headless chicken. If it feels like at times they're not contributing and we have almost like 10 players on the field, then what is the difference between putting a youngster on and seeing if they can make up that difference and play like we have 11 versus a player that's kind of making it look like we have 10.
And when we're talking about such bare minimum expectations or levels that these guys aren't even hitting, then who's to say that the younger talent can't hit those, right? If we're just
again, I think it's just maintaining that meritocracy. And again, I also think it creates that competition and keeps those older guys kind of honest in terms of you got to perform week in, week out, because there are other guys that want your spot.
Yeah.
So you have to earn this spot. Again, you don't get a spot on the team or on the bench because you're in, or because we signed you. You have to continue to show that you're contributing to the team.
Yes.
And I think there's been a few too many players where we're not seeing that contribution, where there was maybe an opportunity to go and say, hey, if you're not going to pull your weight, these other younger academy guys will run their heart out. So again, I think right now is maybe not the best opportunity to throw too many of them in, but I would like to see some on the bench. And again, if we're seeing that guys on the bench aren't performing, then stop giving them the first nod off the bench and, go throw Scarlett on for a game as a sub. Give him a chance to run around for 20 minutes if we weren't impressed by the guys the week before.
Based on a meritocracy and based on simple levels that they just have to hit. And if they're not hitting those, who's to say then that a younger talent can't come in and hit those basic levels that we're asking from a player? We're not asking them to save our season or to win us a title or anything like that. We are just asking them, like you just said there, to just hit basic sort of levels that the player that's playing ahead of them, for whatever reason that we don't think should be the case, isn't, right? And that's happened before with Dyer at center back. It's happened before with Skip, like you brought up. Plenty of good examples there. So I totally agree with you. Shaie, any final points before we wrap up this whole dang thing?
I mean, I'll just throw out my match prediction. I'm going 3-0, not quite as bold as the Profitron. I saved that 4-0, usually for match day after the pre-match pump up when I'm extra hyped, and then I just bump it up that extra little bit.
There you go.
Again, I think that we have the quality in the squad, and a lot of it comes down to Ange finding some way to get these players playing together in this system, which I know he can do because we've seen it.
Yeah.
So I think once we can kind of get these players up to full speed, not really showing kind of signs of the injury or not playing for a few months and kind of rust, I think we can make a push. And again, hopefully that's enough to push us into fourth place. But again, if fifth is the best that we can do this season, I mean, for where we are in the rebuild, that's still a great opportunity to kind of build on this, integrate more youngsters, and kind of improve the squad and make that much better of a challenge next year.
I agree with all that. Love all that. And let's keep our faith in our wonderful Ange Postecoglou. Hope to see a win this weekend. A 3-0 certainly will do. Would love to see that 3-0 prediction get pushed to a fourth after the pre-match build-up, like you said, or even just a week of muddling over this game. I imagine you'll add on an extra goal at some stage. But Sean, appreciate you, sir. Thanks for wrapping things up. Thanks for being patient, and hopefully you have a good rest of your evening now that you're done with that meeting. Enjoy your IPA. Big up to you, my man.
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs. Have a good night, Sean.
Take care.
See ya. Big up to Shaie Maddox, the one and only. You know him from the live chat. You know him from these fan shows. Becoming a real good regular. Really nice guy as well. Really do appreciate that, man. But everybody, appreciate all of you. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching this fan show. Thanks for participating whatever way you might have. Watching along, with whatever you might be doing. Listening along silently, whatever it might be, everybody. Do appreciate all of you. Thanks for tuning in ahead of this one. Thanks to Moondog, Martin Knightsbridge, Ash P, Mia, KPV, Talking Ball for supporting the channel as members or with the super chat as well. It does go a really long way in keeping this channel going and keeping it moving. We will see you next time for the next bit of content that comes out on this channel. And yeah, everybody, hopefully you have a good rest of your week. We'll play Saturday, watch along, pre-match build-up, all that good stuff will be happening. Look out for some other content coming about. I'll leave you here, everybody. Thanks again for tuning in ahead of this one. Come on, you Spurs. In the big Ange we trust. We never stop. And I'll be seeing you. Bye, everybody. Have a good one.